Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Glendale Arts and Culture Commission meeting on March 15, 2018. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioners Derhovanesian.
Here.
Oshagan.
Yes.
Sharikian.
Yes.
Vice Chair Vidor.
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian.
Yes. Next item, please.
The agenda for the March 15th meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on March 9th, 2018. Item 2, consent items. At 2A, approval of regular meeting minutes from February 15, 2018.
If everybody had a chance to review, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I second it.
Great. Roll call, please.
Commissioners Derhovanesian.
Yes.
Oshagan.
Yes.
Sharikian.
Yes.
Vice Chair Vidor.
Yes.
Chairperson Sahakian.
Yes. So before we continue with the agenda, if there are no objections from my colleagues, I'd like to bring up oral communications to the next item. We have some students and a teacher in our audience that we'd like to give an opportunity to speak.
Item 3, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not on this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. The commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The commission may refer the matter to city staff for investigation and report.
Great. We have one card from Emily Goff with Daly High School.
Yes. Good afternoon. So I'm Emily Goff, and I'm the art and design teacher at Daly High School, which is located just 3 blocks from here. Daly is the continuation high school for the Glendale Unified School District. We're a small school serving students from throughout GUSD, offering teens personalized attention and alternative path to earning their high school credits. I've brought my very talented design class with me here today, and maybe in a little bit they can come up with me. In our design class, students collaborate to create murals for the community. Most of our projects have been for other schools throughout Glendale, but we've also created murals for such locations as the Montrose Public Library, Maryland Park, and the Maple Park Community Center. Daly students have also created many utility box murals for the city since the inception of that program. It's inspiring and energizing for me to see how young people can rise up and become civically engaged in all sorts of positive ways. This is their city, and their contributions matter. That said, I'd like to tell you how excited I am that plans are being made for a Youth Arts Week in Glendale that will happen in April 2019. A dedicated group of GUSD art teachers and representatives from the Brand Library have been meeting over the last few months to brainstorm and organize this event. I think a Youth Arts Week and exhibition have the potential to become a very special and integral part of the Public Art Master Plan. Community-based projects, including people of all ages, should always be a key element of planning for public art in Glendale. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing the many artistic contributions of kids throughout the city.
Thank you for being here.
And these are my students. I'd like to have them come up and just come on up. Come on up. Yeah, come on up.
Yes.
Join us.
Please introduce. We'd like to meet each one. Please introduce each one.
And they need to be on camera.
Hi, my name is Tio Shabazian.
Hi, my name is Lily Kashishian.
Hello, my name is Prada Babakani. Hi, my name is Sydney Rubio. Hi, my name is Alondra Curiel.
Hi, my name is Lizette Valdez.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Hello, my name is Andrew Osorio.
Thank you for so much for joining us. Yes, Commissioner Sharikian.
I have a question. Can you give us a little more detail about the Glendale Youth Week?
Well, we've been meeting, we've had 2 meetings thus far, and the idea is that it would be a citywide Youth Arts Week. The tentative plan is for April of 2019, involving high school students from Glendale Public Schools at this time. And we would start small and hopefully grow as the event matures. And it would be it would culminate with a curated exhibition at the Brand Library and offer students an opportunity to work with professionals in the field. And So we're looking forward to that.
April 19, 2019.
April 2019.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because when you said 19, I thought this coming April.
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Vidor?
Oh, yes. I really want to thank you for coming. Full disclosure, I at the Brand Library, so I've had the pleasure to...
Got it.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to start over. Full disclosure, I've been volunteering at the Brand Library and for several years and have had the pleasure of sitting in on the meetings, and it is just so exciting to see. I did report to the commission because I just couldn't contain myself about what had happened there, and even though this is not a city or a commission activity, I just feel that it's so exciting to see something this viable that has legs already and will be a really vital part of the public arts plan once it gets going, and that we all believe that it will expand, and I hope that the school district feels the same way.
Absolutely, we do.
Is it okay
Yeah.
to ask a question if the school district higher-ups have been consulted yet, or is that too much?
Yeah.
I'll defer my question, and just thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is great to see students and our teachers here.
Just for years being Glendale Unified myself, I'm very proud of our daily kids. They have always produced great work, and my desire was that if one day I would have any position as a principalship, I would have had daily, because I think they are the most creative, the most intelligent kids ever. Thanks for being at Daily. Thank you, and thanks for coming.
Thank you all. Next item, please.
Item 4, introduction to the presentations at 4A, Library Art and Culture events, presented by Chuck Wyke, Community Relations Manager.
Good afternoon, Chair Sahikian, Shahakian, commissioners, city staff, and guests. I'm going to give you a little rundown of what's coming up this coming month at the Library Arts and Culture Department. One of the Arts and Commission projects is Beyond the Box, the utility box mural paintings. That will actually go on starting tomorrow, March 16th, through the weekend. We had over 150 applicants, and there are 13 boxes being painted this weekend. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that it doesn't get too wet out there. The Brand Library Summer Plaza Series will start in June. Today is the last day to get your applications in. Right now we have 100, a little over 100 applicants. So I suspect there'll be a bunch more coming in today, but we have 14 weeks this summer, from June through August. Every Friday night at Brand Library, there'll be live music. Brand 46, it's called Works on Paper. This is the 46th annual National Exhibition of Works on Paper, and it's put on by the Brand Associates. It's a juried exhibition. The call for entries will open in April, on April 6th. It'll stay open until June 1st. There's an online application at callforentry.org. There'll also be a number of, we'll do a lot of publicity on that, and certainly if you go to the Brand Library website at that time, you will see that information there. The juror this year is Edward Goldman. He's a regular contributor to the Huffington Post. He's known for his fearless and fun opinions and passionate views on what he sees in galleries and museums all over the world. He's got a show, Art Talk, on NPR affiliate KCRW. So we're very excited about this upcoming show. The show will actually go on in September, but we just want to let the artists know April 6th, that's when you can start working on your entries. Nonlinear Histories, that's a program at our Central Library Reflect Space. It explores the impossible yet inevitable challenges of addressing the politics of memory of the Armenian genocide by succeeding second, third, and fourth generations. And this whole notion revolves around the idea of post-memory. It's a concept developed by renowned literary and cultural critic Marianne Hirsch, and Dr. Hirsch will be at the library for the opening, which is March 17th. That's this Saturday. A lot of things going on this Saturday. There's also a photographic exhibition. It's called Prosperity, Loss, and Survival, a photographic journey from the Dildillian family archive. And that's also at the Central Library in our passageway. We also have Armin Marsubian, who is going to talk about one of his books and really discuss the presence of absence, the role of photography in the lives of Ottoman Armenians. And that's going to happen on April 12th. And this is all in conjunction with this show in Reflect Space and Continuity and Rupture, an Armenian Family Odyssey, which is going to be at the Brand Library. This one in particular, it'll be a large-scale installation throughout the gallery up there. It traces the lives of the Dildillian family through the last decades of the Ottoman Empire. The Dildillians were noted photographers and continued the family legacy of photography in Greece and in the United States. There's a large archive there, and the texts were written, again, by Armin Marsubian, who is the grandson of Patriarch of the Dildillians. We've got an opening night of March 24th at Brand Library. That's at 6 o'clock. But I also want to call your attention to a symposium the next day on March 25th at Brand Library, 10:30 till 4, all day. It's an informative day of richly illustrated presentations by leading scholars of historical photography. And the symposium will explore the importance Armenians played in the rapid expansion of photography across the Ottoman Empire and beyond. So that's the next day on the 25th at Brand Library. We have a number of authors coming. Local author Ivan Obolensky is on March 28th at the Central Library. A gentleman who's Jeffrey Mark, who's written a book about Ella Fitzgerald. Next day, March 29th. There's a discussion of the Hovhannes Tumanian House Museum in your event on March 22nd. And finally, Monday, Tuesday, happy days, Marion Ross is going to visit the library on April 10th to talk about her career as an actress. Almost at the end here, we have the Glendale Transportation Center. I'll make sure I give a good description of this. It was dedicated to former Glendale Mayor Larry Zarian, and it's an Amtrak and Metrolink rail station here in Glendale. It used to be known as Tropico Station. So it's a transportation hub for our city. The Commission has used it for a number of things, including the Wings project. That's an actual photo from that event. But coming up on Sunday, March 25th, if you can't make it to Brand Library, maybe you can go down to the train station. They will be celebrating the birthday of Bach. Sunday, March 25th, 10 a.m. with the Cantabile Chamber Players. They will play Bach in the subways. It's an annual international celebration of Bach's birthday in public spaces. Finally, save the date, April 7th, the Glendale Library Foundation will hold its second celebration. This year, they are very proud to use as its primary focus of funding the Reflect Space at the Central Library. They also do a lot of funding of the Makerspace. So this will be a great evening. It's a ticketed event. Again, save the date, April 7th. If you go to the library website, you can find some information about that. And there's phone numbers and the website for the library also.
Thank you for that report. Lots of great events and activities coming up. Any questions, Commissioner Oshakan?
Yes, if I could just add a couple of things about our upcoming Reflect Space exhibition. We have some tremendous artists participating, exhibiting their work. 2 artists who were actually part of the Venice Biennale a few years ago and won awards there. We have a Turkish artist showing work. We have a couple of very good local artists, so I think it's going to be very, very interesting work. And as Chuck was explaining, the post-memory, this idea how you inherit trauma across generations is a very important topic that actually as far as I know, no exhibition has been done related to the Armenian genocide. So I think it's going to be a very unique one. So I encourage everybody to come down. As well as Armen Marsoubian's collection of photographs. It's not just a historical exhibition that's going to happen at Brand, and partially it's going to be at Central also. It's very, very few things came across the chasm, which is the catastrophe or genocide or Holocaust. Very few things come across, while this whole complete collection of photographs, negatives, glass negatives, hundreds of them made this journey. So it's not only historical, but it's about this passage that can happen from back then to today. So I encourage everybody to also be there next weekend for the Brand opening. Thanks.
Great. Next item, please.
Item 5, business agenda. At 5A, action item, motion recommending that the City Council approve the final draft Public Art Master Plan, Cars Goldstein Report, and recommends the following modifications.
Great. So before we do proceed, just for transparency, when we started this process, we brought on Barbara Goldstein, who we've been very proud to work with, and it was a blank slate, and she has come forward with some recommendations. And so in the draft plan that is presented today, there are recommendations that list organizations as potential partners or potential programs where I either have a business relationship with, or one of them, for example, is the Glendale Unified School District, where I'm an elected board member, but I am compensated for that position. So I will be recusing myself from today's action and discussion, and I'm going to be passing the gavel over to Vice Chair Arlene Vidor, and I'll be joining you guys after this item. Thank you.
Well, regretfully, thank you, Sean, for having to leave us, but we understand. And order in the court. And we'll go right into Barbara Goldstein's presentation, and then we will have some questions for her, and then the hearing, or rather comment period from the public, and then we'll have our discussion and make our motion.
I don't specifically have a presentation to give you. I'm really here to hear what you have to say. And as you know, this has been a process that's involved a lot of input from city council members, from department heads, from previous city employees that worked on public art. We've had 4 advisory committee meetings. We've had 2 public meetings, and we've had a lot of input through the very amazing community outreach process that CARS conducted, through the co-urbanized site and through signage and text messages. And the recommendations that you have before you reflect all of that. So I'm looking forward to hearing your comments. This is the last opportunity that you'll have to make recommendations for changes or tweaks that need to go forward. Following that, I'll be turning around another copy of the draft, and the draft will be circulated to department heads to make sure that they're comfortable with the recommendations. One more set of tweaks will happen in response to that, and then it'll go forward to City Council. So I welcome anything that you have to recommend, and look forward to hearing it.
Okay, does anyone have any questions before we open it up to public comment?
May I? Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Before we go to the next step, my concern is the following. When we have a chair that is part of other organizations and their names are included in this draft, I would respect my chairman and to have his comment and his opinions through this process, and probably represent the draft without any type of organization names or partnering, so we can have all 5 of us discuss comfortably and equally towards this matter, because this way we have a chair that is part of our main item in main figure in our commission, and he's not going to be present. I am kind of concerned about this process. If there are, which there are many partnering organizations in the draft, which I've read it thoroughly, other than specifically the government agencies, for example, certain department, Park and Recreation Department, there are many other organizations named that they are included in the draft. My opinion is, how can we proceed the next level? So the next step is, so the chairman is also present with this. I think he has valid opinions, and his views, and as much as our views, are important for this next step.
I would have to defer to Mike Grant about that. I wasn't aware of.
I wasn't aware too.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware too. So this is something just came up.
And can I add on one more thing? Definitely, being a board member with the Glendale Unified School District, it's a major, major organization that needs to be very much part of, and he's kind of their envoy here on the dais as well. So it would be great if we could do something that we could have his input added.
Mr. Grant?
Perhaps, maybe I could just ask, so why are such specific organizations included in the recommendation, or is there need for such specificity?
Partnership is a very important part of any kind of planning process, and I don't believe that the city can do the work that we're laying out alone. That's why they were mentioned, and it came up many times during the course of our public outreach. So if we were to strip out the partnerships, you'd be stripping out a very major part of the plan. If I had been advised in the first place that there couldn't be any references to any organizations that you might partner with, it would be a completely different plan.
Can I make a comment?
May I add something? The presentation of the plan of the draft, it can be so general that it doesn't necessarily mean a right can include any names, but it can leave open to work with any organization, not specifically the departments. So the draft, it depends how it's presented to us without names. And I agree that we need to work with different departments of the city. We have to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of our interaction between the departments. But naming specifically in this draft, that gives us a certain limit that the chairman is not present. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is my understanding. And second of all is, if generally, when we work in the recommendations to this council, we have a process we go through. We put an announcement, we have 5, 10, 20 artists or firms that they come in, and we select certain groups to work with. That process is part of our operational system. So therefore, limiting ourselves to a specific group of people or department, that will limit also the idea of working, how to work. So this has to be a little bit more general instead of being specific organizations. That's how I see it in this phase. But my comment is to, again, my concern at this phase is Mr. Chairman's being present at our meetings. That's my concern.
Can I make a comment? I hear what everybody's saying, and I think that it's important, but this process has been going on for a very long time now. And right from the get-go, from the beginning, the advisory groups, the artist advisory group, the regular non-artist advisory group, administrative advisory group, were dealing with and developing ideas that focused not only around how we should handle the arts, but the key stakeholders and organizations that are involved. And today is the first time I've heard about the issue of conflict of interest. And I think that a lot of work has gone into this, and a lot of people have given their input, much of which was quite specific. In fact, sometimes there would be more of a community impetus to be more specific. So I'm just asking, I guess, probably asking our leaders here in the city staff how one should handle this, because I feel like we would be really going back quite a bit if we were to now rework this plan. So I just would like to hear some advice from the city.
So I agree with everyone that Commissioner Sahakian's input is most wanted. And this conflict of interest arose just maybe an hour ago. I think I'd like to reiterate what some of you have said, which is that we deliberately hired CARS, along with Barbara Goldstein, to do an extensive community outreach process. And from that community outreach process, the assumption was that we would be identifying community partners. And to delete community partners from the plan, I think would defeat, to a certain extent, the community outreach process. I mean, I understand that we could delete them and then later on go on to say, okay, we're going to partner with GUSD or whatever organization it is, but it kind of serves the same point as reviewing this now with those names in the document. So once again, I feel to a certain extent we're defeating the purpose of the plan by not in some way acknowledging that we have gone through this community outreach process and that these are the partners that have been identified through that process for the commission and the city to work with. Chair Sharikian, just to clarify the conflict
not Chair.
Sorry, Commissioner. Just to clarify, the conflict of interest is not with the city departments, but with community organizations.
Yeah. Well, should we proceed?
I think we have to proceed. I mean, we talk about the Alex, and I can't think of them all now, Reflect Space, and many community arts organizations and key locations all the time. So this is part of what we do here. We entertain ideas. We may or may not even be approving things. In the past, we have. In the future, we will. So this is an issue that, I don't think it's a new issue necessarily. I mean, it was discussed very, very intensively when I joined the commission, because the question was, could you be on the board of a volunteer organization that serves the needs of the Brand Library, even though it's a volunteer, and still be okay? And a lot of thought went into that before an answer came.
I've read through a couple times here. I'm not sure why it needs to be so specific in terms of naming specific organizations. I'm not seeing the reason for that exactly. I mean, there are ways, there are areas where we need to develop art, and there's clearly partners there. So I'm not sure why that specificity is in there.
With all due respect to everybody, the reason that you are selected as commissioners is because you have specific expertise. Every one of you has a conflict of interest in one way or another. People that are Armenian have a conflict of interest when I mention the Armenian American Museum. You have a conflict of interest when I mention Reflect Space. You have a conflict of interest when we mention Brand Library. If you had an arts commission that had no expertise on it, then we could have a completely conflict of interest-free plan, but you would have an Arts and Culture Commission that had no ability to advise City Council. I've done a lot of these. It's really important that Arts and Culture Commissions have expertise on them and that they recognize that they're there because of that purpose and that their expertise is really important to creating a plan. You cannot create a plan for a city without acknowledging the institutions that exist in that city, because all of the institutions make up what arts and culture is. I really, if this had been established at the beginning, we probably wouldn't have done the outreach that we did, and we wouldn't have a plan that we did. We would have something that was absolutely generic that just said, this is how you should do things, consult stakeholders to be determined at the point that you approve the plan.
Yes, comment.
My issue again is still, it's about the Chairman Sahakian. If the Chairman Sahakian will not be present today and be part of the process, he will not be present in the future for any type of decision we take.
Right, and neither will the rest of you.
Therefore, I see it that it's loss of some type of valuable asset to this commission.
Can I say something before Mike talks? I just want to
Vice Chair Bador and Commissioners, a couple points. Addressing Commissioner Shurikan, there are certain items he may be able to participate in that do not involve the organization for which he serves. Okay, so it's not the entire plan he would not be able to do in the future. It would be maybe specific items. Maybe it might be funding for a particular organization, or it might be partnering with a particular organization, but there are other organizations that he would be able to decide on. Also, generically, Ms. Goldstein's recommendations, she might, if she were to make it generic, for example, to say that the city should pair up or partner with a school system, K through 12, well, I mean, there's only one district here, and we know that that would be GSUD, and that, in other words, the chair might still have to declare himself, unable to participate, because we know that it is that school district, and he serves in a compensated position on GSUD. So I'm just saying that, it's certainly the commission's decision today whether, they proceed with this or, request generic, more generic categories. But ultimately, even if generic categories were created, some of them may be quite identifiable, and he may still have to recuse himself from this decision on that part of the plan.
Yeah, because I support that position, because I think that anything we say that references all of these facilities, which are really the crux of at least half the plan, the existing facilities, they're still implied, as you just said, and almost explicit, but they're implied if they're not mentioned by name. So I guess that raises a bigger question about how we proceed in the future, because once the plan is adopted, we are going to be, and we are now, if I understand how the commission works, haven't we had interchanges with other entities to discuss things about Reflect Space and different museums and MONA and,
No, I think this is kind of a new direction, right? Because we don't typically partner with other organizations. We have our own programs, right? So we don't partner with the museum or we give funding to Glendale Arts, for instance, right? But, I mean, the approach is to be a very different kind of body. That's what I understand, right?
You give funding to the Brand Library, and I work as a volunteer on their Friends Board. So does that mean that I have a conflict of interest?
Oh, does that mean she's got an interest?
A conflict of interest that's insurmountable. I think it's a slippery slope. Go ahead.
I mean, for now, what's known is that the remaining members on the commission here do not have a conflict, serving either in a capacity working for the city or in the Friends capacity. But later on, if an organization we'd have to look at in particular, but for today's purposes, the commission could proceed.
Is this something that needs a vote or concurrence, or because I would encourage us to move on and do a review. Ms. Goldstein is here. A lot of work has gone into this, not only by us. We've done our comments. We've all done a lot of looking here, as well as the community. And I think that we should have the review. If it ends up that we have to take some other action, we will. But to suspend the proceedings for today, I think would be very counterproductive. That's my opinion. Anybody want to comment?
Yes, I have a comment. I disagree for the sake of a main figure in our commission which has very general ideas about this plan and not a specific plan. Yes, when we say about education in the city, we're talking about GUSD, but maybe we're also talking some other private schools. When we are talking about public art, we're probably talking about spaces in front of buildings, but at the same time, we're talking parks or also the library. So the definitions of those wording and putting it in the draft, it's Barbara's job. And when we advise her, when we tell her that to be specific at this phase, it's, in my opinion, it's not advisable maybe, or it's not the proper way to start. The reason we have a chairman who is going to be absent, not only for this one, for the future many items that will come up with the master plan. So therefore, we need to compromise. We need to figure out somehow to have the right language so all of us are here present and have our opinions. That's my approach. Again, this is new for me too, Barbara, by the way. We just heard about it, but it's something that we need to figure out to solve this. And I don't feel comfortable have no chairman to run this meeting, and specifically with his opinions to a certain items, many items maybe.
Well, if
That's
there was
how I feel.
somebody
Well,
absent,
it seems to me only in recommendation 6, there are specific partners being mentioned, like all the way up through 5. I don't see anything very specific that mentions partners. And then there are some partners there. And I mean, when I read this, my first initial response was like, I can think of another dozen partners that we need to partner with that could be on here. Probably
Let's
should
hear
be on
them.
yeah.
Here, right?
But hold on, I'm.
And then there is
If we are discussing open mind, as we have to discuss it, then I'm gonna ask to have a stand and vote. Either we continue from this point on, or Barbara will have to revise all the draft and have all the names out. I mean, this is my point of view. If we're going to continue discussing this matter, then I would advise to have a vote.
Could I have my opinion?
Yes, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, regardless of which direction it goes, because there are many merits on either side, but this issue has just come up while we are for months working on this. Barbara has worked for months, and we have had several commission meetings and private meetings and community meetings, and in none of this issue, regardless of how important it is or not, has never been mentioned. So I'm very surprised. To be honest, I do not see how this came about.
I would suggest that we forge ahead, we give our opinions, including any suggestions to, negate certain things. I've negated and added things in my comments. I know that our now absent chair of the commission had comments as well, and I don't know what they are. I don't, we don't know what his comments would be, but he isn't here, and to torpedo the whole proceeding, I think, is just not fair to anybody, and we should go ahead. If we have to do the whole thing again because there are too many comments and there's too much reconfiguration needed, so be it. But to, disband the meeting at this point, I think would be very unproductive. And I have great respect for it and really respect the opinion of Mr. Sahakian, believe me. I think I'm his biggest fan, but we have a situation here and we can't do anything about it. So why don't we just, hold our heads up and proceed, and you can make the comments you need to make, whatever they may be. Let's just go for it, and we can take things out if you want, right?
I think we need to make a motion to either to have, I guess, to revise the plan such that the specificity is changed, or it's revised in a way that we can have a full commission address it. I think we need to either vote up or down on that. I think there's a motion on the floor for that.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, I just want to.
Can't proceed with that.
I know she can't proceed with that. I'm Tamara O'Connor, and I'm part of Community Arts Resources, their vice president. I just want to have you guys really understand what you'll be voting on, and I want you to understand the terms of our contract and our responsibilities. You have a fiduciary responsibility, in my eyes, to get this plan done. We've been working on this. Our first outreach was in June of 2017. As you wisely noted, we have been before you month after month after month. Barbara lives in San Jose. She flew down for this meeting. We're going to be out of contract in 6 weeks. If you want to have a plan that will be presented to City Council, we need to move forward. We greatly respect Commissioner Sahakian's comments, of course. This is all last minute. We've had an excellent working relationship with our client, and I have great respect for our city staff. They have been supportive, communicative, so hardworking, as has the commissioners. With this last minute confusion, perhaps, I really do think you need to figure out what is at stake. And it could be that what is at stake is the delivery of a plan on time in contract. The city has a financial investment in our contract. We negotiated for many, many months. Personally, I resigned as a board member of the Brand Associates to take this contract. We have worked diligently. We have spoken to hundreds of community members. I would hate for the plan not to be delivered to the city. That's my comment.
Tamara, I think we know that you guys have worked tremendously hard, and the plan that you've put together, it's got a lot of parts, and it's really a tremendously well-researched, put-together plan. But I disagree with you that the idea here is to get it done on time. The idea is here to get a good plan that is representative of our culture, our arts and culture, our future here in Glendale. So.
And some of us feel that the inclusion of these key facilities and places, we've discussed it, the Downtown Merchants Association, the Alex, Mona, many more that I'm not mentioning, are essential and will come into play, very quickly after the plan is adopted anyway. And I think, I certainly feel that I want my comments to be heard, and I would like, and I'm sure you would like, all your comments to be heard. So for us to not make our comments today, I think would be unfair to everybody in the room and the whole community, as the community is waiting for this plan. And, the really difficult...
I look at it more as a commission's work rather than my work or Arlett's work or your work. So I think it's very important to have a full commission be able to deliberate on this issue that we've all been working on for months and months and months. So I'm not sure what the out is, but I think at this point, I think leaving our chairman out of the discussions, out of the deliberation of how our city should go forward is, I think, a big issue. I don't know what the resolution is.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I appreciate the fiduciary issues, but I don't know.
I don't think that we're leaving anybody out. I think this is a legal matter involving not even so much the Glendale Unified School System, but some of the issues that Commissioner Sahakian is involved in his own work with organizations. So it doesn't really even have anything to do with us. It's a protocol matter, and if you want to comment on it, I don't know how this would resolve in the future.
Well, Vice Chair Vidor and Commissioners, we did not have enough time in our office since it was presented to us early this morning, the conflict. I mean, one option is that you put this matter over and we will look at exactly all the conflicts and see whether Chair Sahakian can participate in portions of the plan or I would say in certain recommendations, but it would be parceled out. I mean, you know, he may still have to remove himself from certain decisions. I know that in Barbara's plan, I mean, she has short-term, long-term, and, you know, each recommendation. So it makes it difficult because, you know, there are certain policy decisions. He might be able to partake in maybe one or two of the sub recommendations, but when it comes to the overall plan, he still may not be able to participate. But I mean that's one thing we can do is, you know, put it over and we'll take a look at the conflicts and more carefully to see if there are any ones that he, you know, overall he can participate in. I mean that is another option that you have.
Okay. We have one more comment, and then I'd really like to hear from
Just a
Cindy
question.
Cleary.
Can we discuss about the rest of the issue and leave that item alone and then have our chair not to participate in that part of comments? Because we all have our own interests, and at given time, even it might be a personal situation and we might abstain or we might, you know, decline to make part of. But for that very reason, that's why we appoint a vice chair, so that if the chair cannot. Definitely, I would like all of his ideas. He's a good friend of mine. I respect him tremendously. But if he has an issue with a certain section, we should respect that and not have him participate in that part. Or do we have to go through the whole change of the plan and then to make, because of that one section is something that contradicts with his personal life?
Well, it's more than personal life. It's because of these organizations and the conflict. I mean, if we were able to parcel out those things, and I can't guarantee that, you know, what the commission would be doing is you would be considering at first you would consider the things in which he cannot participate, and then he would be brought back into the discussion, you know, for those items in which he could participate. But then there's an issue, you know, when you reach the final decision on the plan, you know, the final recommendation, he may not be able to participate again because it encompasses some of the portions in which he could not participate. So,
couldn't there be, if it's that major, could it be that at the end it would be said that commission by the vote of 4 or whatever approved, or by having a vice chair kind of running the rest of the thing regarding this proposal would act and mention that, you know, because of some whatever reason, our chair could not participate in the decisions made? Is there a way to do that, or do we have to postpone the whole thing to revise the thing? Because there are other questions that commissioners we do have, but that's different. This is a major issue on, you know, taking a stand. So legally, what direction should we take before we make a decision here? It's a legal thing that you need to tell us.
Again, it's really the commission's decision today. I can tell you that, again, another option is that, you know, we look more carefully and see if it's even possible that we can parcel out portions.
Yeah.
But if we can't, then you'll be in no better position than you are at this very moment, and it'll be brought, you know, and all it will have done is delayed, you know, you're taking action on the matter.
I'd like to add one more comment following up on what Ms. O'Connor mentioned. We do have a contractual obligation through the end of April. If we delay this, it means that this will be delayed, well, even more. I, at this point, do not know what their schedules are. It could be that at the end of April, CARS is incredibly busy. I know they just sponsored something up at the Getty. I know their schedule is such that I don't even know if they could continue. Ms. Goldstein, I know, may be traveling the world, so I don't know her availability. So we'd have to renegotiate a contract, which would take, as they know, it takes a while to do that. And then we don't know their availability, and maybe you can address that.
I just confirmed with Barbara that we are unavailable after April 30th.
May I ask a question regarding the time that we have right now, about a month and a half, and the contract? Can you explain us what will happen if somehow, if it's delayed, not delayed, for some reason, we haven't voted, or what's the process if the contract is not met by the deadline, what will happen?
Couldn't it go straight to City Council without going through the Arts and Culture Commission? They don't, couldn't it just go straight to City Council?
It could be presented straight to City Council without a recommendation from the commission.
So
I would hope that we would be able, since, you know, we're all
That's not a
equal
solution.
people on the commission. There's a chair and a vice chair, but we all have an equally weighted vote. And there are many, many times on commissions, I mean, I sat on one for 8 years, where somebody isn't absent. We even had times when 2 people were absent, which is actually better. Then you have an uneven number. Here we have an even number, so we could end up with a tie. But you face that all the time on commissions. I know that this is a very important thing. The conflict of interest that's been identified is just a fact of the way the law works. There's no way around that. And to cut off our noses to spite our faces, so to speak, by not hearing ourselves talk about what we like and don't like about the plan and what we think should be changed, I think would be just a terrible waste of the resources we've expended already. And, you know, I think Shant would agree with that because he was the one who brought it up. And I respect Shant, and I'd love to have his opinion here. But it could be any one of us who would be gone, and then what would we do? If you had to bow out and there were 4 others, would we proceed without you and me
That's
and
not the
her
issue.
and her?
That's not the
What
issue.
is the issue?
The issue is, my opinion, I'm saying it again, we have a chair that has a lot to say in this matter, and he was part of the procedure since the start of this master plan, and not being him available from the first meeting and not him being available for his comments, for his opinions, that's a valuable asset to me, I think, for not only us, for the whole community, for the whole system. I think that's a instrumental issue for me, and not being him here,
You would want to sacrifice yours, mine, Arlette's, and ours opinion as a result of that? I don't think
No,
that's
we
fair
still have
to
our opinion.
anybody.
I'm not saying that. All I'm asking is if it's possible to remove the organization's names from the report and present it that way. So Mr. Sahagian is present. I'm not changing any master plan at this point. I'm not giving my opinions. So we go on next step. If that is possible, then we'll proceed. I mean, that's very element, because all the recommendations, there are probably at least 15 or more names of different organizations that has been recommended to be partnered with.
And if the people
And
who
I'm
are,
worried about that.
if the people who are speaking today, all of us are going to give our feedback. If we all have discussion points that relate to specific organizations and groups that are part of this conflict, can we not mention them if we do that? Because the chair would be here. Would we be able to express our opinion if it involves the Alex or?
Yes.
We would, okay.
Chair Vidor and Commissioner Sharikian, addressing your issue with the contract generally specifies a completion date for the work of CARS, and it would require renegotiating an extension of the contract to perform additional services at an additional cost. The agreement would have to go to City Council for approval because it exceeds $50,000, this contract, and any contract exceeds $50,000 needs City Council approvals. So it would, whatever the extension of time for further assistance on this matter would have to go to also Council. Again, I just want to mention, Commissioner Sharikian, even in a generic sense, some of the organizations, the description of them in a generic sense may be readily identifiable such that Chair Sahakian would still be removing himself. I mean, if it talks about that, for example, we should pair up with a school, schools and school system, then we know that there's only GSUD in this area. Or with a college, we know that it's GCC. Or if it's a little less so, if it's a city staffed youth organization, we all know that that's GYA. So even generic descriptions may still create, be well, they may be readily identifiable such that the chair will decide still to remove himself.
Yeah, so I think I understand that. So it's clear there's going to be some parts of this plan that Chair Shaligan cannot participate, but it seems to me the majority of the plan, maybe he can, but we don't have enough information whether he can or not. For instance, recommendation 2, new project, the city builds in park, streets, and civic structures. I mean, there are lots of parts of this plan that we as a whole commission can talk about. And then there are some parts that clearly he's going to have to recluse himself.
That is correct.
But we don't have enough information to say which parts and when.
And we would need,
Right.
we need a little more time. It was very short for us
Right.
to be able to advise the chair on this.
If we talked
understand.
about
Can we-
merchants
That's unfortunate
associations
after
and
months and
theaters
months.
and museums, would that be acceptable? Would that be generic enough? Merchants associations, theaters, and museums.
Those are generic. But again, I mean, again, again, on some of the organizations on which he serves, I mean, I don't recall right now, if he serves on the Merchant Association, then, I mean, he'll know what that is, so.
Well, I'm assuming since, many of us have comments, and I mean, I don't want to get into a discussion about what my comments are or what your comments are. I'm very curious to hear everybody's comments, and it sounds like many of the comments may be to make the thing more generic, so let's hear the comments. I mean, that would be something we could express during our discussion when we're commenting and giving our opinion back to Ms. Goldstein. You would be saying what you've been saying.
If we accept that process, that means we're accepting the way it is, and that's what my issue is.
It is the way it is.
Well, the way it is, I'm suggesting to have something removed so the chairman is present. That's what I'm asking.
But the whole purpose of this meeting is to decide what stays, what changes, and what is removed. If we preempt the formal input process and start removing things now, I mean, that's not within our right to do that. We have to comment and give our feedback back to Mrs. Goldstein, and some of it may include slashing specifics and being more generic, but we can't pre-edit this before we give our comments.
So if I may suggest a way forward, one way forward is for all of you to give us your comments today, and assuming that some of your comments are to make this draft more generic, then we can come back in April with some extensive review from our city attorney as to what the conflict of interest is, and at that point get Mr. Chair Sahakian's input. It's going to delay the process, so I don't know how that will impact the contract. Well, I do know how that will impact the contract because we only have until the end of April without any more further contractual review. But if it means moving this forward, that's as good a suggestion as I can come up with for today. Otherwise, if we don't move forward in any way, then we definitely are not going to meet the contract and the deadline of the contract.
And it won't solve the problem either. It'll just cause a delay.
I mean, it's possible to have a special meeting if that would speed things up, right? And I think all of us are ready to meet anytime. I know that Barbara is from out of town and cars may not have time, but maybe we could get them by phone or something so that we can have a special meeting if we need to do something so that we meet the contractual agreement as well as be consistent and have the whole commission join. And I completely understand that some parts, it looks like, even if it's very generically written, Shant will not be able to participate, but I think the rest of it he can participate in.
I mean, we would have to review whether we can even write this without totally invalidating it with every conflict of interest taken out of it. I mean, that's going to be the first step. But if that's possible, once we get your review and once we consider that, then we could, according to schedule, we could have another meeting. And Barbara, can I ask you how long, if we were to get input from the 4 commissioners today, then how long would it take before we could get another draft and then perhaps proceed with a special meeting sooner than later?
If we get input today, I'll be able to turn it around by next week. But I can't in good conscience write a plan that does not have the partnerships in it. I would have to walk off at that point because ethically, I have spent since last June talking with community members, and I am not going to put my reputation on the line to strip all the content out of this. Partnerships are a very big part of what we heard. So I couldn't proceed. It would be morally repugnant for me to turn my back on what I heard from hundreds of community members about how to go forward. We'd have to take out Reflect Space as a recommendation because you work for Reflect Space. We'd have to take out references to any organizations that any of you have had relationships with. And then you would have a plan that basically it could have been written for any community. And I don't do that. So, my recommendation would be if you're all tied up in a knot about this, we just go straight to City Council with no recommendation from the Arts and Culture Commission.
I think it's, that we want to gain more stewardship and more involvement here, and, caving in on that, I think, would be the death knell of this commission, and I really think we should hear this. The issue here is a conflict of interest. That's a straightforward thing. A conflict of interest exists. We cannot deal with that. That's something that has to be dealt with legally and by the right people, and we should be responsible here and move ahead with this. If I was absent, if any one of you, including me, was absent today, would you proceed? Yes, you would. Of course you would.
But it's not a matter of absence, right? Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Barbara, I completely respect your approach, and I think you are the expert at it. I can't say how it should be done, so this is how you've done it. And so I think the only way forward is if we do make comments, we have to make sure that Commissioner Sahagian is able to make comments on the parts where he does not have a conflict. I think that if the legal department can figure that out, because clearly to me when I read it, there are parts where it is generic enough, it is unspecific enough that I think he would not have a conflict. So if that process can be, that research can be done and we can know what that is, then I would be okay to move forward so that we can include him in as much as he can be included, as well as moving the plan forward.
We wouldn't be able to do that today because it's going to take further review from the city attorney to be able to really assess. I mean, this is new to us as well today, so we did not have any time to really consider it until maybe 15 minutes before the meeting. So once again, my biggest concern is the delay and the contract. And now we have our consultants who are saying they are not available in the near future. Once again, I think by taking my recommendation is to move forward, because taking out some of the things in this document, as Ms. Goldstein has said, and I said earlier, it may invalidate the work that they've been doing for months and months and months. It's your decision.
I think
yeah,
I agree with you, Cindy.
And as our esteemed attorney has just advised me, that it may not end up with any better result than what we have today in terms of the assessment of this document. So we're taking a risk by not moving forward, and I think it's a risk that's your choice, but it's not my recommendation.
I feel like
Barbara, sorry.
No, I think that the risk, the risks that have been identified to the plan, to the contract, to the future of the public art master plan far exceeds this very unfortunate and sad, and we're all crushed that obviously that Shant isn't here, but I think we need to proceed. It's obligatory that we do as commissioners, because there's nothing that invalidates what we have to say at this point with the with the consultants here under contract, and we should move forward. And then we will deal with your suggestion, which might be a very valid one and may be workable, but we will not know that today. So, let's at least express our opinion about the plan. And then we can have another round if we need to, or a special meeting.
I think maybe, so I think it makes sense to me. If we move forward, we can move forward, but I think it's very important to perhaps call a special meeting after the legal department has gone over this whole plan and looked at where Shant can participate and where he cannot. Then we can do another special meeting perhaps next week. If it takes Barbara 1 week to turn around, then we only delay it 1 week, and perhaps we can still meet the fiduciary requirements for this plan.
Okay.
And you may come back, and I realize it's a risk that the legal department may come back and say, well, you know what, he has good inclusion for the whole thing. But it seems to me that would not be the case in this particular.
Well, can we, since it's about 3:30 now, could we move forward and proceed with the meeting as it's written in the agenda and make an agreement to one of the conditions being to follow up with a special meeting?
Can we have also maybe Shant Sahakian, the chairman, come back and continue when his part comes up with a specific item? He can step outside.
The proper procedure would be for the items in which he cannot participate, this commission, the remaining commissioners would take up the item, they would take any public comment, then they would reach a decision on it, and then for the items in which he can participate, that would be left towards the end, and as a group, the entire commission would be seated here and deciding it.
And that would be at the next special meeting, right? It would not be today, obviously, right?
Correct.
Okay. So why don't we proceed, and we will have the special meeting, we'll put that in the minutes, and move on now to, I think we can go to oral communications and then discussion, and that's where we would give our input, or do you want our input now?
I am opposing that idea to proceed. If we're going to proceed, I would ask to have a motion made so we can proceed the next step to continue. If my motion is to wait until next week and continue the changes then, let's do that. My issue again is to have Sahak, Shant, the chairman, to be present with all during the all meetings. Therefore, if we're going to postpone it for a week for some reason, reevaluate things, let them write down without those specific organizations, be it.
Chair Bador.
What if someone's absent at the next meeting?
Then that's an absent. It's different.
Yeah.
Absent is different. I can get
Well,
killed by then maybe. I hope not.
Not present for one reason or another. Shant is not present for a reason. Just like if I
And
was
the
sick,
reason is not valid for me because the language that has been presented to us in the draft can be filtered out in a way that Mr. Chairman can be present.
Chair Bador and Commissioners, there was already a pending motion from Commissioner Oshagan about making a generic. If there's going to be a new motion, that motion needs to be withdrawn.
Yeah, I withdraw that motion. I'd like to make another motion that we have a special meeting next week. Is that 1 week enough for the legal department to be able to look at this? Yes? Then we have another meeting next week.
Well, we also don't
review.
know the availability of cars and Ms. Goldstein.
Are you saying, yeah.
My understanding is, if I were to write in changes and submit them, you have to, because of the Brown Act, it has to be submitted back to the commission at least 72 working days,
For a
working
regular
hours
meeting.
before.
For a regular scheduled meeting, but for a special meeting, it's shorter time. 20.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know what my schedule is, but we could take a look.
Are
So I
we,
think we could-
hang on,
so
are we saying
that's
here
it.
that we're going to do the review today and then follow up with a special meeting? Because I just can't accept that we're not going to that we're going to change this before it's been publicly reviewed. I think we need to make our comments public today.
Can I say something? If we go with the happy medium, that means they have mentioned that they cannot change that part. That's definitely, it is mandated, it's the structure, it is the scaffolding for whatever they're presenting. So that is clear. The timeline is also clear that after that, the whole thing might be postponed for a year or so because if they cannot be working with us. And money-wise, it might cause some extra financial problems here. To make a happy medium is within 1 week, we would have a special meeting. In that, the legal advice would be that which parts Chair Sahakyan cannot make a comment, and we would continue with everything, and they would put everything together. So this way, it is neither they are losing what they have based their work because they cannot change it. And the department and the city cannot pay more money to be able to bring them back and make it work also. So, and everybody else to be happy to have Chairperson Sahakyan here. So our legal advice in 1 week would tell us which parts Commissioner Chairperson Sahakyan cannot make a comment. Would that work? Would that make people happy?
It's not a matter of happy, it's
No,
being
acceptable. Sorry if I'm not
acceptable, yeah,
using
yeah,
the right legal word. You know what I mean.
yes, yes.
Because I'm losing it at this point because this is too unbelievable.
Yeah, it is.
Would that
And
make sense then? Would that,
this is
to do a
really
special meeting? I mean, that's my motion. Before
your
we move
motion?
forward, we schedule a special meeting for next week.
Yes.
In the meantime, the legal department will look at how Chair Sahakyan can participate to make comments. If we move that motion forward, then we can continue with our comments, since clearly, we want to interact with Barbara and have
Without
her.
having them changing the structure
Yeah,
of their thing.
the plan as it exists right now cannot be obliterated.
Yes.
It has to be commented on.
Yes.
No, that's not my
fine.
understanding. This is a draft, and we have the final, all opinion rights to make whatever changes needs to be done before going to the council, publicly, of course, publicly.
So
of
that we
course,
need
yeah.
to get on with it and do it.
Yes, so therefore, we are still working on the draft issue. There are many probably question marks that we need to address publicly and make sure that we are on the same page before it goes to the council. Now, if Barbara wants to take it to the council the way it is, and she somehow was frustrated and told us that, questioned us somehow, I don't know how advisable is that. And then she also mentioned that.
I don't think she thinks it's a good idea.
She also mentioned that if she doesn't have this procedure going fast, she's probably going to quit. Did you say that, Barbara? You're going to pull off? I mean, did I misunderstand that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
No.
but she mentioned that if this thing doesn't go by the contract, she doesn't want to.
Well, she can clarify, but that, what Cars and Ms. Goldstein are saying is they are not available after the end of April in the near future because of their schedules. The other thing, and I think we have to respect Ms. Goldstein's opinion about what a master plan is, and what I heard her say was that to take out the partnerships would invalidate, in her opinion, this master plan. And, I think that CARS, certainly I agree that after all the community outreach that we have done, it would invalidate this document by not recognizing partnerships. So if I'm listening to everybody, I think what I would recommend as a motion is that today that we call a special meeting after Mr. Grant has had an opportunity to review the document and figure out what parts Chair Sahakyan can give his opinion on. We come back with the same document, and we have a full discussion with all five of you.
Yes, and it is televised. Special meetings are televised.
Our meetings are televised.
So community can see that what
But we have the discussion now, so can we proceed to give our comments, and then we'll follow through on the special meeting with Shant reviewing what he is allowed to review? Can we do that?
I think you do
The
need
motion
to
was-
agree to that.
Okay. So we agree to do that, and then follow
Yeah,
up
no, I mean,
with a redacted, a properly redacted document for
yeah,
Sean.
there's no reason for us not to make comments as long as we know that there's a procedure in which then Mr.
Yes,
Sahagian
we'll follow
has
up
a
with
chance,
redaction.
has a legal framework in which he can make his
Yes,
comments. That's
right.
the key.
Right, so the redaction can't be done today, but we will make
We
our
can make our
comments
comments
and
today,
follow
yes.
through. All right. Can we go?
With the caveat, again, once again, that, we will look at it very carefully to see if there's portions, but it may turn out that he may
You-
not.
Yeah, the redaction, and whether it's the whole document or even little tiny parts, we will await your decision on that. Okay? So the next step is oral communications or go right to our review?
Well,
we have a motion.
You have a motion pending.
We do have a motion, okay. I did not know we needed a motion. I
Well,
thought
we
we all
have, it was a
concurred
pending
that.
motion from Commissioner
Okay.
Oshigan.
So
Yes.
could you restate your motion?
And I
You wanna
need to
amend
make a motion to have a special meeting requesting the legal department will review this case and have a special meeting so Mr. Sahagian can make his comments on this.
And it'll be
on this plan.
redacted, the redacted plan that he
Are
can
we
review.
continuing now and
May
then
make-
having a special meeting or not?
Yes. No, we're continuing.
Well,
And then whatever comes out
it's
of
up to- I mean,
today, my understanding is that Barbara Goldstein will redo with whatever comes out today in our opinions and discussions, and that will be redacted for a special meeting, and then we will go over it with Shant, present, right?
Chair Ventura, I'm not sure what you mean by redacted.
Redacted meaning, where I'm using the term redacted just to say that the parts that he cannot see, he will not see. That, he's going to recuse himself. It's another, redacted isn't the right term. It's, he leaves the room.
Correct.
Okay.
But just
But
to
that's-
address Commissioner Oshigan, so, Commissioner Oshigan, part of your motion, so you said so that he can participate. We'll have to change it so that he may participate. He may not be
Yes.
able to.
Right.
Yeah.
But the decision will be made, and then we will go forward. Okay. And we're going to
Then-
go today.
Then we should invite him back?
No, not now. We're
Not right now.
If our
When we
comments
go
are-
on to the next matter on the agenda, he can take over, but to complete this matter, there's a pending motion which,
We need somebody to
need a
second the
special
motion that
meeting.
I've made. The motion is.
Yours was not clear, that do we
okay, the
continue
motion
and
is-
have a special
okay,
meeting
so-
or we don't continue and have a special meeting? Let's clear.
So whether
Let
we
him make
continue or
the
not is
motion.
not part of my motion whatsoever. The motion
That
is
has
we
nothing
have
to
a
do with the
special meeting.
situation.
Yeah. So my motion is that we hold a special meeting next week or whenever the legal department is ready, has reviewed this case, in which then tell us if Commissioner Shahagan can participate so that he can make his comments. That's the end of, he
Your
may
motion.
be able to participate, make his comments publicly on this plan.
It's clear.
That's
We're
my motion.
continuing. Yeah, it has
nothing
nothing to do
what
with
we're doing.
today. Yeah,
It
right.
has to do just to have another special
Yeah.
meeting,
I
to give them a
second.
chance to participate.
Okay, I can't second.
I
Somebody-
second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioners Derovanesian,
Yes.
Oshigan,
Yes.
Sharikian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Vidor.
Yes. Okay, we can move forward.
now we can,
So is the next step oral communication
So-
from the public or go
the
right
next
into
step
our
is I
comments?
can bring the chair back
Back, exactly.
to conduct the proceedings now.
Yes.
Oh, I thought,
Wait, no, are we,
no. we
Yes,
were-
why
because
can't we,
it's a general,
It's no longer, you're no longer discussing the
Yeah.
public art master plan.
Yes, we are.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
why
we are
can't we
discussing
discuss, why
the,
can't we discuss with Barbara the plan now?
yes. The idea was to have a
I'm sorry,
second
Chair,
meeting.
I misunderstood when you said that you want to go to oral communications.
exactly, that's what I understood.
Not oral communications, comments from the public, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's
Regarding
what-
this
Comments,
agenda.
no.
Yeah.
We are
Regarding
on the
this
same
agenda item,
point.
regarding this agenda, I'm sorry, I'm getting my terminology mixed up. I meant comments from the public.
Yes, you can proceed with comments from the
Okay, do
public.
we have any cards?
There was a card here.
No?
Wait, come,
Okay, I thought, that's Emily Goff. I thought somebody else was going to be speaking, and I am incorrect, so we
why
can.
don't we, excuse me,
Yeah.
Chair, are we still in the part to discuss the PAMP?
Yeah. Yes,
So
we
it's
are.
not
The
comments
special
from the
meeting is
public,
next week.
Comments.
We're going to, that was the idea here, that we're going to defer this issue until, we're going to go ahead, we're going to respect our consultant and the process and the timeline. We're going to give our comments. She will incorporate the comments into the plan, and then we will have a special meeting.
So we're not
It
in
is the
public comments yet. We are still in the
We're-
same agenda point.
yeah.
We have not changed another
Public
point.
com-
So
public comments
is a
on
different
this agenda,
point.
on
That's
this
a different
agenda.
agenda point. Okay, all
Chair
right.
Vidor and Commissioners, you may receive
isn't.
public comment on this, and then next week
Yes.
you may also receive public
Public
comment then
comment,
as well.
yeah.
Sure,
Public
yes.
comment is on agenda item number 5A. That's the one I'm asking about now. We're still on 5A. We don't have any cards, so we will proceed to go ahead and give our input to Barbara Goldstein and finish the agenda item. All right, so who wants to go first? Who wants to go first? Anybody? I know everybody's got comments. Come on.
Tell you something, I'm brain dead at this point.
All right.
I'm very sorry, truly. The shock, the surprise, and
Yeah.
the issue is beyond.
Who wants to give their comments first?
I can.
Okay,
I can
go
ask
ahead.
it.
Go ahead,
I
Ara.
want to start with a question.
Okay.
Go on.
I guess we're all learning the process here as to how to do such a thing. Nobody's done this before except for Barbara. So why is the mission? So the mission statement is kind of very generic, yeah, very broad, and I guess it's really a matter of my expectation of what I thought was being created in terms of the discussions and the ideas that were being exchanged over this whole process. And so I guess my question is why is the mission so kind of, it doesn't tell us about the future. It tells us very much, and I really appreciate the plan, and in terms of how it was put together and the recommendation it's making. But it seems to me the mission should be about what we see the future, how we want Glendale to be.
A destination.
That's been always so that we can then speak about this is what we're doing, this is where Glendale is going, this is our direction. We can convince the city council, we can convince the public. That kind of, I don't know, statement perhaps, or attitude, approach, it's not here, yeah?
Generally speaking, there's a difference between a vision statement and a mission statement. A vision statement is where you want to be, say, 10 years in the future, and a mission statement is basically how are you going to get there. I pulled the vision and the mission statement together based on what I heard and also based on the city's own vision and mission for itself. So if the commission wants to develop something that's more specific, that's great. I'd love to hear it. We can revise that. That would be a really great idea.
I do not have the mission statement with me, but the actual Arts and Culture Commission's mission statement, I think it is a little bit more of what I would have liked to see, which talks about the city of Glendale, not only for...
Hang on a second. Are we
Yes.
still on our completing your comments? Let him finish his comments.
No, we're good.
He
We're good.
did.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
done?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, I mean, we'll ask more, but she can
When
comment.
she's talking
This is
about-
the comment
It is
period, right?
comment part, we're talking about it, we are not finalizing anything. So the fact that we do not just want it to make it healthy means what? We want to make it more a destination. We want it to be more economically supporting both the artists and businesses in City of Glendale. So there are lots of details. I think I wish we had our mission statement of the commission. I think it's a little bit broader, but I think it is more to what I have envisioned always to have it.
It's now 3:41, so I'm going to suggest that in the interest of time, you each go through all of your comments first, and then we have some discussion, if that's okay, and because we're limited in terms of how long we have this room.
Sure, go ahead.
Anything else, Sarah?
Anything else?
Yeah, for instance, in some of the short-term plans, I mean, to get to the specifics, is there in number 2, for instance, to revise the municipal code? There's just a statement about it should be done, and is there a process in which that could be specified? A little more detail, I think. Or why, I guess the question is why it isn't, or if it's not necessary, why it's not written in there.
Which page are you?
Where are you? I'm sorry.
I'm on page 13. In recommendation 2, short-term, 1-year recommendations, number 2.
That's the recommendation, to set aside 2% for art in all public art construction
No,
costs.
that's not, so page 13, is that?
That's where I am.
That's number 2.
Revise Municipal Code Section 30.37 to designate a set aside of 2% for art in all public construction projects. That's it. There isn't one. So the recommendation is that happen.
But, so what is initiate an annual public art capital improvement plan?
Once you have a 2% for art in public construction, then you can look at the city's annual capital improvement plan, which is how the city builds, and you can propose how to integrate art into the city's buildings. If you get if you get a percent for art in city construction, then at that point, you can look at what the city is building and recommend how you want to integrate art into what the city's building.
So a
So
very
the process,
concrete example of that would be if we had started the Central Library project at the
Right.
time that we were being budgeted, then we would earmark 2% to that project through our city's budgetary
Right.
process.
So another example would be, let's say that the city sets aside 2% for art in its construction, and they go ahead with the Space 134 plan. Then the year that they started that, you as a commission and your newly hired public art, urban art program director would say, we have X amount of money to spend on Space 134. Our recommendation is whatever it is. It might be to commission an iconic work of art, or it might be to integrate art into the design of the landscape. So, but we don't know what the capital construction projects are yet, and we don't have the percent for art. So all you can say at this point is, number 1, create a set aside for art in new city construction projects, and the subheading under that is when the capital plans are done, then you as a commission together with your staff person would then determine how that was spent.
The process would be, we go through
Right.
the review process of the commission.
Right.
That's
You would
implied in
develop
that statement then,
You
yeah.
would develop
Okay.
a work plan for capital construction, yeah.
I'm just saying, what
Yeah.
would the review process, is just implied that it would go through the commission then, yeah.
Yeah.
I think somebody else can go if you like. I guess my thing, if I want the revised vision statement, I'll have to give it right now.
Oh.
Right, I can devise one, send it as a recommendation to Barbara, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I guess my other thing is, it did, and I know it's really important for you, and you expressed yourself very clearly that specific partnerships are very important in terms of being pointed out and put in very specifically in this plan. So I guess I'm not sure why that, I'm still having trouble why that would be part of, why Glendale Arts, why the Armenian American Museum, even Reflect Space. I mean, why these things are mentioned in this sort of very broad kind of plan. So I guess that's my comment. I guess you already spoke about that, but it's still not, I guess I'm not totally convinced.
Could I express an opinion on that or not?
Well, look, why don't we let Ara complete
Yeah,
his
so that's just
comments,
something
and
maybe
then,
we could talk about
on,
that.
on all his comments. Just finish with
If I
what you're
remember
saying,
by the
and
end.
then let Arlette go ahead. And if you want to comment on something he said, you can do it during your comments.
So the recommendation to create a Cultures Affairs Division, I think, is one of the very, very most important things that we have to do to move forward. So I think that is really, really important. And my whole thing is about, all right, say, we want to create a Cultures Affairs Division, people say, why? So then I want to say, because we can do this and this and this, and we can move Glendale forward, we can take Glendale from this point to this point with this vision statement that's incorporated in this plan. If somebody asks me, I say, it's right here in this plan, it's right here. It says this is what's going to happen if we can do all these things. So I guess the thing is, it's very specific, and I'm kind of would like to have vision of the forest. I think we have the trees, and I think it's very well defined and clearly articulated and delineated what we need to do, but I'm not seeing the forest in this document.
Okay, can you tell me, I'm very interested in what you're saying. And so can you tell me in broad terms, I'm not asking you to wordsmith it, but in broad terms, what do you think needs to be in the vision or mission statement that's not there so that I can try to craft something?
Well, I mean, it's like, we've said this several times, like to make Glendale a destination, to bring the kind of art, for instance, we talked a lot about technology art. You presented work about technology and that kind of art, and there isn't much of that here. In terms of a direction, so I guess this is my thing, is to, if we're going to go forward, if we're going to develop a particular type of art, I like to see direction, not just kind of this broad, but certain directions, and that, for instance, technological direction, or that when we do all these things, then Glendale will be able to become a kind of destination for not just Glendalians, but all of Los Angelinos. Something along those lines. I mean, if I need to, and I will, I guess, then this is what needs to be done. I'll sit down and articulate a paragraph or two of what I think could be that kind of statement.
One of the reasons that I really didn't put in things like certain types of art, like technology-based art, or what I heard from City Council was classical art, was because there was no kind of consensus about Glendale's art should be this type of thing or that type of thing. I heard different things from different people. And so it was, I think that the point about destination is a really good one, because that sets a goal. I think that talking about specific styles of art might be something that, first of all, boxes you in, but secondly, because, for example, City Council was very, very keen on the idea of classical sculpture. So you're keen on the idea of technology art. I didn't hear really consensus between different people about different styles of art, so I'd be very reluctant to say that it's a destination because of this type of art. You could say, we'd like to see it become a destination because we are celebrating what's uniquely Glendale.
Yes.
Or something like that. That's, it becomes very tricky, because then, you know, do we...
I get that, yes, because you're conglomerating, you're collecting all the ideas.
Right.
And you're trying to find the happy
Where the
medium,
consensus is.
or the consensus.
Yeah. Where the consensus about the vision is. Yeah.
I'll stop so that.
No, I appreciate what you're saying.
But I think I'm just to write it down so that it's going to be better, because I'm sure people have a lot of comments.
On two issues discussed, I can talk about, because truly, when I'm at this state of mind, I would not like to make proper suggestions, because I don't think it would be as valid, it would not be the best of me. What I can talk about the mission statement, I do believe that it needs to be open, because at this point it is 5 of us on this dais, and in the future there would be other, and there are council members now that in the future we might have different. It needs to be more open, but it needs to see what is the goal because the goal would decide what needs to be at any given time. That is as far as the mission statement. As far as why those organizations are important that they are mentioned, if it is not mentioned, it could be any city in the world. But when it is mentioned, these are the wealth that Glendale City has, like the Glendale Arts, like now new spaces created. We need to make sure that there would be a way that we would continue to collaborate and there would be support provided. So we cannot ignore whatever is present, not mentioning, hoping that hit and run, we will use it. But while it is there, it identifies our city. Those community organizations mentioned, I know it has caused a clash, and I wish truly that it did not, because I was not even aware there's such a thing that could cause whatever. That's why I'm still not in my place. But those are the identity of City of Glendale more than you and I, as a chair or as a commissioner. So I don't know how that could be omitted. When anybody presents any kind of a master plan for a city, I think that is part of the city. So if there's a legal way that it could be done, I'm sure Barbara Goldstein, with all the experience she has, I don't think she would have mentioned it if it was not an integral part of what she is suggesting. So for that very reason, the clash, I don't know how it would be resolved. Yes, he's very dear to me. He's like a brother to me. Yes, we need to do whatever, all the commissioners' ideas I respect, but I hope there would be a way. So definitely the mention of the different organizations is important. Now, if our legal advice could kind of block areas, so when we have the meeting next, meeting that we are talking about, so then Sean could happily sit and give his opinions on others. If not, nonetheless, we are all Glendalians. We all have gone either to the schools in the Glendale Unified, or we have been an administrative position for years with Glendale Unified. Sean is very dear to me, and it's a big respect that he has been elected. But, you know, meanwhile, this is several months he has been elected to that, and I can help you also if I'm still because I need to exit as well. But I've been 20 years with the district, and I have been both in schools, and I've been administrative, I have been advisory with Glendale Unified. I'm known till the end of my life as Glendale Unified. So, and in and out of that district is known to me. And all the stuff in the administration, I can walk in and out at any given time, even with the board members. But that doesn't take anything away from it. So if there is anything that would be pertinent to the district, while I'm here, I can help you out, but my time is also finishing. So we need to see what we are going to do. So on those two specifically mentioned, this is what I had to say. The rest, when we have our meeting, I'll talk about, because right now I don't want to make any specific comments, which is not as good as it should be.
Can I, just for clarification, because I heard what you said before, the mission of the Arts and Culture Commission is to enrich the human experience, reinforce Glendale's identity and civic pride through arts and culture, and to recognize the importance of arts to our quality of life and the local economy. This is accomplished by conscientiously integrating arts and culture into the daily life of the people of Glendale through urban design, planning, economic development, and education. So my question is, if you all feel that that mission is the appropriate mission for the urban art program, which is what this plan is about, then would it make sense to just reiterate that for the mission statement and think about a vision statement that basically says, you know, the vision of the urban art plan is we envision that Glendale will be a cultural destination throughout the LA region based on the investments that are made through the urban art plan or something like that. Would that make sense?
Personally, if I'm still on my turn, I would like that, but let's see what the ideas initiated from him.
I think that would be definitely improvement. I'll have to reread the statement, read the statement.
The one that I just read?
Yeah.
That's on your it's on the web page, so.
It's on the web page. Oh, it's not in our document
The mission of the arts, so it would change, so it would say the mission of the urban art plan or the urban art program is to enrich the human experience, reinforce Glendale's identity and civic pride through arts and culture, and to recognize the importance of arts to our quality of life and to the local economy. This is accomplished by conscientiously integrating arts and culture into the daily life of the people of Glendale through urban design, planning, economic development, and education. So all we would be doing is changing the word from the Arts and Culture Commission mission to the Urban Art Program mission.
May I suggest something?
Sure, yeah.
Is there any way you can elaborate something that Glendale to become the leader of that kind of art?
What kind? I'm sorry.
Exactly. We don't want to be a city that it's another Santa Monica or maybe another Long Beach or Pasadena. We want art that could be technology, that could be creative, that could be performance, that could be anything. But whatever that art we decide, like Ara said, we want a vision to be a leader on that and not just as destination. Otherwise, people will go other places, West Covina, Pasadena, it's another destination. But when we have that idea of we're leading the art towards the future, that might give a better vision. I'm not specifying what kind of art it's going to be.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
You know, but it gives a hope that we are going forward towards our future generation. For example, today, students that they were here, I love the idea. That was the first time, maybe second time, students came by.
Second time, I think.
Have we talked to the college students? Have we talked to the Glendale Unified District School art program students? Those are the future. I mean, they might have brilliant ideas, maybe much better ideas than we have all. That's the future I'm talking about. And it's specifically to lead that future.
Sounds good.
Okay. So do you have more?
Not yet.
Yeah, we do have more, but I don't know if we have
Oh,
time.
no, I'm talking to
Not
Arlette.
yet.
We don't have
I
time.
give my turn to
Okay.
next
Do you
person.
wanna go ahead?
The special meeting, I'll talk more.
No, you go ahead if you want. You
I'm
go ahead.
supposed to be last.
No, we can go last. You feel comfortable. We can go back and forth.
Mr. Attorney? I can go? Okay.
I can go later.
Okay, so I made some comments, and I don't want to go over. I did actually do some direct edits on the
Okay, great,
document,
thank you.
and, you know, some of them may be too much, some of them may not be correct. So I'll just go over my general comments, and I made copies for everybody so that, you know, we can all see them, so. Anyway, my first comment is I just wanted to confirm what, there's a couple headers that are different. What are we calling this? The Urban Art Master Plan, the Urban Art Plan, the Urban Art Program?
Yeah,
So
I think we
whatever
need
it
to-
is,
yeah, I think it needs to be called the Urban Art Master Plan.
Urban Art Master Plan, okay. So that's our acronym and that's our name. Okay, so then my second item was, I think it might help because there's so many subsections where you're repeating, you know, short-term, midterm, long-term, and then another section, short-term, midterm, long-term, that maybe you could do a high-altitude index at the beginning, i.e., this document is structured as follows, and just reiterate the outline format so that if you're paging electronically, it isn't so hard to follow. Subsections, the key subsections, if you could number too, rather than use bullet points, because when we're working with the document, we have to say, oh, look at bullet point number 2, and people get confused. So whenever possible, if you could, I notice you use the word encourage a lot, which I don't think anybody responds to encouragement anywhere, especially developers. So could we say incentivize where appropriate, and even maybe financially incentivize where it might be appropriate, because nothing motivates non-arts people like a financial break. So if it's appropriate to say financially incentivize, then we have to know what we're talking about. I think the 2% versus 1%, or the equality of the two funds is an incentive in some way, but just use the word incentive more, because we need to think of incentives, otherwise no one will do anything. On number, excuse me?
No, I was just mentioning.
You want to comment?
No. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm on. Number 4, the detailed budget estimate grid that you showed at the the last February 26th
Yes,
meeting. Is that in one of the appendices? Because that was extremely useful. I mean, I love the thing that we had a vision of how much money potentially these issues may set us back.
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Cindy on that one.
We didn't include that in this round. One reason was because I looked at it as suggestions to help guide us through the work plan.
Okay.
When that process starts,
Shows up.
after this plan is approved by
Okay.
the city council.
So that's a working
By you and the
document
city
for the future?
Yeah.
Okay. So another detail on that, are the programs and specifics that you mentioned in this urban art plan, which I think is extremely thorough, and I thank you for that, are these related to the things that you budgeted in that worksheet? Are they the same things?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
They should correspond pretty much exactly.
Exactly, okay. Yeah, I just wanted us to be apples to apples here.
Yes.
Could you italicize or boldface any direct verbatim quotes or resource references such as the downtown specific plan that you're using? Because, we've adopted a lot of rules and policies through the years, and, we've all been around to see those happen. We've all been on other advisory committees. And a lot of the relevant quotations from those plans really need to jump out at people so they have immortality, because we need to uphold them. We need to restate them over and over again, otherwise they kind of get lost in the shuffle.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I think the general plan, which I think is still, the Glendale general plan is still around. And there are things about the arts in there, so anywhere where we can verbatim quote ourselves is good. Please number the, or letter, I did this already, numbering and lettering each specific recommendation so the outline has some longevity. And can there be an overarching recommendation that is all consolidated in one place, where we talk about the necessary enhancements to the municipal code? Because I know you mentioned, I think you mentioned mural. Did you mention mural ordinance in here at all?
I think I've seen it.
I provided the city attorney with a sample murals policy.
Okay. Okay. So anything where you feel that in order to facilitate this plan, we have to tweak the code, we should probably just get that right in some place so we can.
As an overarching recommendation.
As an overarching recommendation. And, I know we're trying to get more general, but my tendency in my comments was to even get more specific. And I was wondering, in terms of the locations that you mentioned, if we could call out reconfiguration at some point of the city's website to include an arts and culture portal. Because I looked at a lot of cities that are considered to be real artistic, and they typically have a portal you can go into when you go on their website, where you're going to see, that part of community life all in one place. On number 9, outreach. Oh, yeah, you took a pretty deep dive into the activities and the things you found out about the history of our program, which I thought was amazing that you were able to capture all of these things. And it seemed like the things that Eve Rappaport and Annette Vartanian did should be in the history section, and we should try to isolate that section of what has led us to this point and not go back to it. You kind of split it up all over the place.
Yeah, and
Arlene,
actually
can I say
Arlette
something
had some
about that one?
suggestions about things that were left out.
Yeah, I'm not
which is
saying you shouldn't include them somewhere, just maybe put them in
Yeah,
a
and-
history
and-
statement.
Just a
Arlette's
little
pointed
comment
out that
in
there-
between that section. In that section, because with the
There's
history
more.
of Art and Culture Commission, we have had Eve Rappaport at the beginning. I've been 13 years with the thing, but we flourished at the time that we were not yet in the department. We were just housed at the Parks and Rec, and commission was running the show, and the staff were doing exactly, and we were supervising. We were both Cindy and the commissioner for the thing. Ripsime Marashan has done a major work. She continued a lot of stuff that was started, and she embellished it to the point that up to today people talk about the open tour studios, studio tours. So, and she also brought in the Diamond Awards to appreciate artists in the community and also organizations that support art in the city of Glendale. So she has done much more, which I would like staff to look into, whatever was done during those years, and include her name, because between Eve Rappaport and Annette Vartanian, we had a major person who was a great connoisseur of art and music. So we need to have that. Thank you. That would make it nice. Thank you.
Just a couple more comments. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and and it was like a lot of it. And I was just wondering, is there some way you could restructure it a little bit so that it wasn't clear to me what, as an expert in this area who's done a lot of plans for cities, what you think our priorities should be, like a priority section. Maybe in those short, mid, and long-range plans as you articulated them, that's what the priorities are, but it didn't come clear. I guess, maybe I'm just not, I'm over-interpreting that, but I thought it would be good to be able to do that, and also to make sure we've captured in the short term the really low-hanging fruit, like, for instance, the Beyond the Box program, which is already going. And we talked about the need to neighborhoodize it so that in every neighborhood, the plan is very specific to the neighborhood and creates a certain artistic cohesion in small geographical areas. And we should put that in there because that's probably one of the easy ones to do. I mean, not easy. Chuck is looking at me like, what kind of assignments are you giving us, guys? But, it already exists, and to, try to make it thematic wouldn't be, like as big an ambitious project as some others. The high school invitational that's what we were calling it. Now it's sort of become like Art Week, and you were here for Emily Goff and her students. I don't see any reason why that couldn't be outlined in the plan either, because that already has legs. It's being worked on. There's a committee. I think that the school district, I don't know this for a fact, but I think the VAPA committee in the school district is already discussing it. And
it's the first I heard of it.
So okay. Yeah. Oh, all right.
It's literally the first I've heard of it.
Okay. So, if we could include that, that would be great. And then, and here comes some issues with groups that, one thing we could do as commissioners once this thing is approved is we could do, people have to know about it. They have to get primed, like, I hate to use the word groomed because that's not a word that's used in a positive way, but kind of priming people to be ready to jump on and participate. So we had talked about going to the Downtown Merchants Association and making a little dog and pony show, and we could have a standardized presentation, and we could divvy up the, and go and make presentations to different groups where we're all telling them a kind of templated story about what we're expecting to do and how they're going to be involved. So maybe we could, did what I say make sense? Just
yes.
Okay. So civic organizations, cultural groups, community groups, the merchant groups definitely, to show, so that we can show some success and some action in the first year rather than things floating along without doing anything. And then when it comes time, this is something I've asked around and I've asked Harvey this, when it comes time to go to City Council, I know I sat in on the meeting where you presented your first draft to City Council a few weeks ago. I went to that City Council meeting. And it seemed like City Council really needed to hear from the community. So the community and some of the communities here today want to, rally people to get re-engaged. And the outreach is essentially now ended, right? Co-Urbanize isn't up anymore, and there aren't any more things going out because the plan is in its final preparation. So is there going to be any way that we can, regroup these people for the sake of city council and input?
Arlene, are we sure that City Council was exactly aware of the number of interventions, the number of times that this program has communicated, and at large, the number of population that have responded to this?
That was,
it might not be very
that
clear,
was,
I think,
that
to
was
the council, though.
communicated at the city council meeting, and I don't remember what date, but a
30th of
very, in
January.
fact, I was going to, here it is,
Yeah.
and I was going to ask you if, I don't know if this format is the format you're using. It's pretty dry because it doesn't have any pictures or anything in it, but this summary of the CARS outreach plan is extremely vivid, not only in its statistics, but its pictures.
Yeah, that's
Could
gonna
you,
be-
would you be including this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the reason, because it's always difficult, as you probably know, to keep changing the text and moving the pictures around.
Right,
We
right, right.
decided that
You
we
want to
wouldn't-
do that
yeah.
at the end.
But one
Got
of the
it.
appendices is going to be pretty much like that. That's going to show the outreach with the statistics and everything in it.
Okay.
In terms of re-engaging people, I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, it seems to me that it should be something where the commission takes a lead, and we have names and lists. I don't know what the protocol is about sharing those and getting the word out, so that's something that has to be discussed. I just don't know the answer. But obviously, with the number of people that were engaged, a lot of them care about this and would be wanting to show up at city council, I'm sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As
Someone
far as-
comment on that? or
As far
clarify?
as numbers, for the first time in the 25 years of my active life, I'm now been 36 years in the city, but 25 very active part. It was the first time I've seen that the message has gone even through the water and power to every home that this is happening in Glendale. So that means any adult who could read, it was. And for language purpose, it even went to the Armenian TV to make sure, because we have a major number of great artists in the city. So in case language would be the barrier, it was done. So in my book, because I worked with different consultants when I was with with Glendale Unified School District, any professional document, I have not seen it so well spread and effort made to contact every individual. So I don't know what else could be suggested if you, because you are doing a fantastic job, very professionally detailed. Even the wording that you are using is fascinating me. Changing one word for the other because there's a difference in the meaning and the function of the word. Could you suggest what else should have been done to reach out to every identity in the city to help
I think
them
she's
know?
talking about going forward.
Yeah, I'm
It's
talking
like
about going
once the-
forward.
Once the draft plan is going to city
Because
council,
the
I
comment
think
was
that
city council said that we did not, you did not include
don't think so.
everybody's idea, basically.
No, let me clarify.
Okay,
I guess
do that.
I didn't make myself
Sorry.
clear. No, I think that the outreach to develop this plan, as we see it today, was incredible, and I've never seen such a deep dive into the community, every aspect of the community, and civic leaders and staff to get input. So there's nothing to be done there and nothing to criticize. I was just saying, going forward, the very next really important step is going to be that city council meeting and, you know, the showing of interest by people, not only us. I mean, we'll all be there, but, you know, the huge community. So I would like to know what can be done going forward to that meeting to make sure that they know that crucial step is going to happen and they can weigh in at that meeting, or at least have the opportunity to. We can't make them show up, but we need to make them know what's happening.
Regina Alcazar with Community Arts Resources. I was in charge of the public outreach for the plan.
I'm not asking you to justify it. I think
I
it
wanted
was.
to clarify some things because the co-urbanized website, that's myglendalepublicart.org, it is still live.
Oh, it is.
People can definitely go to the website and see the comments that are still there. It's kind of at a standstill Earlier today, I'm still communicating with the followers, so I have that ability. And we are in the middle of talking with Cindy and Chuck to pass that on to the city. That is to be determined, but that is definitely a conversation you can have with the city to see how the co-urbanized website can continue to be utilized in the future.
That's not exact, I think that's great, and I notice co-urbanized is used, but that's not what I'm asking.
I'm saying it's already an existing audience that is captivated, and it's about 250 followers right now. You know, that's a great start. You would be able to.
But it's passive, right? You go to co-urbanized to look at input and give input.
So when we send an update, it sends an email directly to all of the followers.
Everybody.
Everybody on there.
Okay.
If you're following
so it would be a way to make an announcement. Then.
Yes, definitely. I made an announcement this morning about this meeting today, and I'm sure a lot of people tuned in.
Okay. But it will go to all of the followers of co-urbanized.
Correct, yes. I'm saying it's a starting point. There has never been a starting point before. I know the Library Arts and Culture Department has an email newsletter that probably has a big following. There's a lot that can be done.
All right. Thanks, Regina. That now I'm with you. I didn't understand that about co-urbanized.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's it for me. So I'd like to pass Barbara my comments.
Thank you.
Barbara, if I could, are we like, we're going to get kicked out? Are the lights going to go off soon?
No. All right. So we have one more.
Pretty much.
So,
wait, we have.
It is 4:18.
Can we?
I mean,
Is this the last opportunity to talk? I mean, I'm kind of surprised because I'm waiting until Mr. Sahagian is here next week, because until now, what we've discussed has nothing to do with anything with GUSD or anything. I'm surprised with the process that we have expressed ourselves without being Mr. Sahagian be present, and we have not discussed anything with GUSD.
Well, that was the whole.
we need to
So
we
therefore-
need legal advice on that. So
Yeah,
let's just,
right.
let's just
Yeah, but
wait
then
for the.
this is what I mean. The process that
think
we
we
just went through, it just didn't make sense.
No, the process we just
Hold on,
went through
I'm
was
asking
looking at
the legal
this.
department. You know, I understand the issues that had to be related to the GUSD or certain organization, but in this case, they have discussed almost everything, and none of the issues were related to GUSD.
It's not GUSD. It's all of the organizations that Shant has a business relationship with, some of which we did mention.
Well,
Vice Chair Vidor and Commissioners and Commissioner Shurikan, until the Commission revealed what they wanted to say about it, there would be no way to know in advance.
Well, that's exactly. So therefore, my question to our legal point perspective is: next special meeting, we're going to come and say those things again, in a way that is rephrased, so the chairman is present. Is that correct?
Yes.
It will depend, Commissioner Shurikan. I mean, there might be items that specifically that you talk about that may have an impact on some of the organizations which he belongs, in which he serves as a board member. Or, again, I can tell everybody reveals their comments. It's impossible to know whether, you know, each point that was in, each recommendation that was in Barbara's plan.
Okay, my question is: do we still have time? Until when do we have time to run this meeting? 5 o'clock, 4:30, or when? Till when?
Yeah, there's no other meeting coming in here.
Okay. My question is this: one of the questions you mentioned about community town hall meetings, and I was present to at least a couple of them. One of them was a workshop, kind of divided into the groups, and those meetings were kind of documented, and ideas came up. You also mentioned about advisory board. Would you please explain me what is the advisory board and who appointed the advisory board?
We put together an advisory board with Cindy's assistance and also with the assistance of City Council to create a group of people that represented a broad cross-section of the community, both cultural organizations, educational organizations, community organizations, artists, it was so that we had a group that we could consult with, that we could bounce ideas off of, that we heard in all the interviews and all the public meetings, and they could provide us with expertise. So it ranged from somebody that develops artist live-work space to people that represented prominent arts organizations that serve a broad cross-section of the community.
It was somehow like an inner circle type of group that
A representative group, I would describe it.
And
yeah.
in my opinion, in the past 8 months since we had this going, we have not heard about this.
It's been in every report that I've submitted,
my-
actually. The advisory committee meetings have been in every monthly report that I've submitted. There have been 4 of them.
Let me rephrase it.
Yeah, please.
Is the Art and Culture Commission the one that hired the firm to have this master plan work done? We have recommended to the council, and the council has hired it. Is that correct? Am I correct? That we have recommended this firm to the council. I would suggest if there are anything needs to be discussed, appointing a advisory body, any type of body, at least have our commission opinions and then advise kind of.
Let me address that, because that was not as a result of any, what's the word I'm looking for? It was the staff's responsibility in terms of how that went down. It was my understanding that the person who used to be in Chuck's seat had contacted you, and I do apologize that hadn't happened.
Apology accepted, but in fact is that now we have a process which had been going on for the last 8 months and maybe more, that I was not aware of it. And a lot of times during our commission meeting, we report about the process of this, the plan, and we had like, okay, it's still going on, and next meeting, Barbara will come up and ask questions or bring up some things. But I personally have not heard in our meeting any reports that there was appointment of such a advisory body. If there was, I excuse myself, but I have not heard. If there was, again, I'll excuse myself. But my question is this. We are talking about a master plan that it will have the envision of the future of City of Glendale. And we are building a structure. We are building civic laws. We are bringing a lot of new ideas, which, Barbara, I do like most of it too. Don't misunderstand me. I like a lot of things that you have already prepared. But the question is, have we completed our task? Completed our task. My question again to Barbara is, do you feel comfortable with this draft to present to the City Council?
Absolutely. I have never done a plan that had as much input as this one. It's very typical for a plan to have an advisory committee that is apart from an arts commission, and we have reported to the Arts and Culture Commission every single month since we started, both in writing and in person, and the advisory committee has been mentioned in all of our reports.
Well, I haven't heard a few of the meetings, and I can bring the agendas back, but that's not the point. My point is, I can bring agendas that there was no report about the Master Art Plan. I can bring some meetings that there was no agenda mentioned about Master Art Plan since last July.
No, with all due respect, we have been at every single Arts Commission meeting. I've been here every month except for November, and in November the report was presented by Tamara and Regina. We've been here, with all due respect, more months than you have.
We've also, at each meeting, we did give a review of all the activity of CARS and Barbara over the last however many months.
And, you
I
know.
will do some of my homework and bring it back, but my perspective is this. If we have reached 1,400 people, we have outreach to many organizations, we outreach to many artists, and we still need some work to be done. That means in this report, in this draft, there are things that are missing. And we should sit down maybe till next meeting. We'll bring up all those issues again so we can draft in.
That was the purpose of this review today.
My purpose is to have Sean Sahakian, the chair, present in this conversation because I think he will have a lot to say too. And I don't feel correct myself to express myself regarding this because the method that we are using is I'm not comfortable with it.
What specifically aren't you comfortable with?
Well, I'm just asking to have Mrs. Sean Sahagian, the chairman, present in this meeting. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, okay. So it isn't the input issues or anything?
No, the input I respect. We all have our inputs.
No, I mean, I'm talking about the outreach. You're okay with that?
Well, there are many things that I can still discuss about it, but I'm not done. And my still issue is to have Mr. Sean Sahakian present in these meetings. And until now, all the discussion have been done with my colleagues, from my colleagues, that none of them has related with his being present or not. But I guess until next Thursday, we will sit down and revise this draft again, remove whatever needs to be done, and then go on next step. I'm looking forward to reach to the goal. I want to pass those hurdles, but I want to make sure that we pass it in a correct way.
Well, here's an opportunity once, and then again next week to give Barbara your input.
I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it.
So so that's it. You're done with your input, or should we go on, or do you have more?
I don't know. I'm waiting if other people have to say something.
Well, we've all spoken. Do you want to make another comment?
Yeah.
Go on. I'm done. Recommendation,
administrative recommendations. I just want to say for administrative recommendations, recommendation 1, I think 3, 4, and 5 are really, really excellent. And on page 17, I just want to say this the revised. 4 is revised Glendale's municipal code to designate the commission as the official review body for public art in private development and on public property in consultation with the design review board. I think that's a very, very important step. I think we should all really support that. 5, reconfigure the commission's committee structure, which we've spoken about, and I appreciate the recommendation or that to have 2 different kind of review boards and bring in outside professionals in the fields whom we work together to make these decisions. But there also seems to be, in recommendation 2, Glendale Arts really, really figures very largely. And has nothing to do with Glendale Arts by itself. For instance, there's also the Armenian Museum, which doesn't even exist, and it may not get built, and it figures into these things. But so Glendale Arts specifically, if you take out the name, we just say a nonprofit organization. It seems to me that the recommendation is we need to work with a nonprofit outside of city structure to make some of these things happen. Is that your approach? Whether it's Glendale Arts or Tacoma Arts or whatever, is that the approach? Is that the recommendation you're making?
Yes.
And why is that, I guess?
There are a couple of reasons. One reason is because you don't have a staff structure that exists yet, and one person can't do it all. The other one is because Glendale Arts was created by the Community Development Department and previously by the Redevelopment Agency, specifically to be an organization that brought together private nonprofits to present their work and to market their work. And realistically, I've sat in these meetings and heard you all say that it's really important to do a more thorough job of marketing the arts and getting the word out. And just in practical terms, if you, the city, were going to do that, you would have to staff up substantially to do it, where you already have a nonprofit organization that is doing some of these tasks. And so creating a partnership with that organization to help the Arts and Culture Commission and the Arts and Culture Division staff would be a very efficient way of getting things done. That's my recommendation. It's a lot of cities work this way, where there's a partnership between a nonprofit that provides general support, whether it's physical space or marketing, to the arts commission, the arts community as a whole works with the city entity so that it's 1 + 1 = 3, basically. That was the reason.
Barbara?
And there's nobody else doing that here. Yeah.
And
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Arlette.
Well, again, I repeat, but I need to repeat that. The two names that mentioned, for example, Glendale Arts, it is our pride. It is something that we need to cherish and to keep the survival. It is our identity. Alex Theater, what they produce brings people to this city, sells tickets, and on TV and radio and etc. Their names brings Glendale on the surface. That's number one. Armenian, the two that mentioned, Armenian Museum, that is the vision and the dream of half of this city, about 100,000 people in this city to have that. We might have it, we might not. But since it is the vision, that is the future that she has included, that it is part of the vision of the city. With all the people who came to all those meetings and the text and etc. that they have received, that has been partially what was the dream and request and the vision. So those two, and most probably the rest of them goes with the same detail. So there was a need to say the ones that already we have talked about should be there, and then in the future, any other nonprofit organization that does a fantastic job is going to make Glendale a destination. Of course, that would be understood, that should be part of. So maybe it should be these organizations and others that in the future would be organized, maybe. I'm not good with the wording. We have people who do much better. But basically, I still do see, as I said, we are here today, and we might not be here tomorrow. But those organizations do exist, and we want their existence to continue, and that's why it's very important.
I have I didn't include this in my general comments, but I did annotate the thing when we got to Glendale Arts, and so since you brought it up, my understanding is that Glendale Arts is supporting about 80% of its resources to the Alex, to maintenance of the building, programming, all of that. And that the other 20%, they have a very broad mission to support the arts in Glendale. Right. And it seems like, I mean, I don't want to drill down too much into organizational things because it's, kind of a touchy-feely issue, but in a way, shouldn't Glendale Arts, at least the component that deals with general arts support, be kind of reporting into library arts and culture?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason that it states creating a partnership with them.
Okay, so that's what you meant by that, right, more or less. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe we're saying the same thing. It seems Glendale Arts is a great organization, but their focus seems to be the Alex.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
80%, I think.
Yeah, and so the 20%, we need like an organization that can work, if this is the way, is to implement some of the things that we need to do with a nonprofit, then then we need a nonprofit that can devote maybe more time to what we're doing or more resources. It's just, I don't know,
or more staff.
Or staff, or something.
Yeah, it seems like
it's just not sitting well with me.
The one person who's going to be this senior, what was the title? Whatever the title, it doesn't matter. But an urban arts specialist, program person who can oversee everything and coordinate with the different departments and make sure what needs to get done gets done. That person by themselves isn't going to be able to support the whole thing, and they will have some part-time staff and people who have been involved, but the little bit that Glendale Arts could contribute, whether it be grant writing or helping with programming or doing a program, whatever, I know they do a festival every year, whatever it is that they're doing isn't really enough to make the program as you've described it, which is fantastic, happen. So is it understood that this assigning of a senior person to head the thing up is just the beginning? And if so, to Ara's point, where do we go from there? And can we elaborate a little bit more on that, or is it not possible to do that at this point, or not wise to do it at this point? I don't know.
Well, here's the situation. The Urban Art Fund can be used for certain kinds of things, and it can't be used for other kinds of things. And the certain kinds of things that it can be used for are things that benefit private development. The ambitions that I'm hearing from the community, from the City Council, from the Commission, are much broader than the things that the Urban Art Program can fund. By taking an organization like Glendale Arts, which has a mission to serve the city as a whole, and is actually located in an area where development is happening, and partnering with them to do some of the things that you can't do with the Urban Art Program, will allow them to do some of the things that you want to have done. And they were charged with a lot of broader roles than managing the Alex Theater. The fact of the matter is that when the redevelopment agency existed, they had received a larger amount of funds to do broader things. Their funding is going away slowly, and the City Council has the impression that somehow they're going to be able to find the money someplace else. And I think that one of the someplace else's is a partnership with the Urban Art Program. If you were to say that the city should be doing everything, then you would be spending the entire Urban Art Program fund on staffing, and it would be illegal, because you would be using it on funds, you'd be using the funds in a way that's not really allowable, which comes to another point, which is in the plan, that there are certain things that can't be done with the Urban Art Fund money, and my recommendation is that as the program grows, the City Council really needs to look at other funding sources for the arts. If they have ambitions of placing arts in individual neighborhoods, in schools, you can't use Urban Art Fund money for that. So what I've been proposing is an incremental approach that will allow you to begin spending the money in ways that are legal, to begin building the program, which will build people's appetite for funding the arts, and will allow you to build up a constituency that can then encourage City Council to find additional sources of funding for the arts. The reason that when LA in 1989 created the LA Task Force on the Arts, actually created 3 sources of funding for arts: private development, public construction, and hotel motel tax. And the reason for that was that when you go out to the public, what you hear the most is, we would like to have equity among neighborhoods, among people of different ages, and all of that. But you can't use the money that is being generated by developers in downtown Glendale and say, we're going to spend it over here in Kenneth Village for a small arts festival, because that's just not legal. I mean, nobody's suing you now, but they would be completely within their rights to do that. So I'm trying to be cautious and lay out a strategy that will allow the public art, the Urban Art Program to grow, and the arts in general to grow, by saying, let's take this little bit of money that we have. It doesn't seem like a little bit of money, but it really is if you think about it over 5 or 10 years. Take it, use it wisely, and use it in a way that builds partnerships, builds the interest in art throughout the city, and will encourage City Council to find additional sources of funding, and will encourage groups like the Downtown Glendale Association or the Chamber of Commerce or whatever it is to say, hey, you know, we see that the city is investing money here. We'd like to leverage that by adding our money or adding our resources. So that's the reason for the partnerships. That's the reason for suggesting that Glendale Arts be a partner. And that's the reason for suggesting that City Council should find other sources of money for the arts.
Thank you. And we know what the legalities and illegalities are, and there's kind of a technical explanation, and you're, of course, going to
And we've been, I mean, because I wrote the first ordinance for a citywide percent for art and private development, I'm really very conscious of the land use rules, and I consulted with the city attorney here right from the get-go to make sure that because the way that the municipal code is written, it kind of doesn't exactly state what it should state. It's a little broad. We'll just put it that way. It's a little broad. Would you agree with that, Michael? Yeah.
So if nobody has any further comments, do you have more comments? Okay, go ahead.
Are you going to be here next week, Barbara?
What?
Are you going to be here next week?
No. I mean, I can't, I mean, you know, we haven't set a date. We have to look at what the date is.
Okay.
You know, first of all, I mean, we can't say it's going to be next week because we have to figure out, first of all, what Shant can do and he can't do. And
Yes.
the other thing is that although you've given me a lot of comments, some of them are things that are going to be really hard for me to figure out what they actually mean, because some of them are very broad. The other thing is I'm not sure that, well, I just have to look at what I've written down and see which ones can be incorporated. But should I be rewriting before we meet again, or?
I think because it needs city attorney review, it's probably best to keep it as is, but maybe we could add something, you know, to the report of what the comments were.
Yeah,
I submitted my comments verbatim.
Yeah.
I edited the document. Maybe could people, after the fact, even though it wasn't done at the meeting, could the other commissioners submit their comments
Yes.
verbatim?
I mean, if we're going to, oh, I thought you said yes.
Would that be legal or no? I did not present my comments, all of my comments here. I just did an overview of them because I edited the document and it would have been too much to go through. So I gave her my edited document, and I'm happy
Yes.
to enter it into the record if I need to.
Yes, but any additional comments would have to be done in a public setting.
yeah, we will do that.
Okay. I mean, the comments I submitted to Barbara
It
are
should be
not.
verbally.
Have you given them yet?
Yes, they're.
That, they were presented today, so they can be incorporated, but additional comments after this meeting would have to be only presented to her in a public setting.
Okay, so at the next meeting. Okay.
May I ask another question regarding, which is I want more probably explanation. When you define and we state that partnering with local organizations, Glendale Arts or any other organization, let's say we have a plan, we're going to paint the sidewalk green for a certain neighborhood. And let's say their organization that we have partnering with in this plan, Glendale Arts or any other organization, they're asking for $50,000. And let's say there is another small organization which they have 100% volunteers. They're asking no money for that project, and they are nonprofit organization. Will this plan allow to negotiate outside those partners' plan to work with other organizations?
The plan proposes that you create we're not using the term grant, but a program where you would put out an annual request for proposals for neighborhood-based projects, and that any organization that wants to come to you with a proposal could come to you with a proposal to fund their idea.
Exactly.
And you would determine based on your work plan how much money you were going to be giving away that year, and what the request for proposal framework could be. So one organization might come to you and say, it's all sweat equity, we're going to do it ourselves, we're just, everything's going to be donated, whereas another organization might say they need $50,000, just like it has worked with your Art Happens Anywhere program.
So to put it in another wording, so it's not limited to
No,
those
and
organizations.
a lot of times in the plan, yeah, it's saying generic.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
For example, the Glendale College or
Right.
GUSD, I mean, those are millions and millions of dollars, and if we make a partnership with them, there are specific programs that the whole city will get good part of it. But when we go into neighborhood programs and very small scale, which we love to do it most probably, and we need to partner more than maybe one organization. Within this draft that you have proposed, I saw those names as the only option. Maybe,
Well,
somewhere along the line on the top of the frame or of the agenda, you mentioned that not limited to these organizations. This is only an example, because as a commission, when we have guidelines and we see that, okay, we're going to work with GUSD, we're going to work with this neighborhood watch, or we're going to work with this organization, that gives us certain restrictions. And the other way around, where there will be no restriction, actually we as a commission will have a better understanding, and the community will be transparent. This way, we will not limit ourselves to one organization, but we will be open to any type of organization that have the best plan suitable for that specific project. So
Well,
that's my point is.
I agree with you, and that's why I put in there, in most of the recommendations, here's one. Year one, commission artist team to create a plan. Partners include downtown arts organizations. That's generic. And the one that has to do with neighborhoods, partners include neighborhood councils, local businesses. That's generic. In most cases, the partners that are mentioned are either city departments or they're types of organizations that are generic. They're not, the only places where the organizations are specific is when there's a specific role that they need to play.
Maybe you should have also a generic statement somewhere along the line.
Sure. I mean, I think I did that, but I'll make
that helps
sure.
the understanding, because somewhere along the line, we will partner. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But what we need to be transparent and not to specific one type of organization set by this draft or set by the guidelines. Because down the line, we don't know 5 years later what's going to happen to that organization. They might go bankruptcy. You know?
I hope not.
I hope not too. But or there will be some other organization which they have valid and very structured means to make the program successful, of course. Okay, go.
I mean, one way around or one suggestion would be wherever we mention partnerships, we say suggested partnerships included but not limited to.
Yes, of course.
That's fine. I mean, and I thought that it was kind of understood when I put things that were generic, but I'm happy to do that too.
Yeah, but then it gives us a better, for the public's sake, not just for us, to make sure that everybody is on the same page.
Sure, that's good.
Any other comments?
Yes, I think it's a great idea, nicely put. Just one thing I am asking and also commenting, hopefully the partnership would not look like providing funds for different organizations to be like CDBG that provides for kind of different organizations. We would be providing for art and cultural events, because that would put us in a very bad spot if we are going, community would understand us in a way that because we are such a legitimate good organization, because we are providing art and cultural services, so from the art fund we are going to be able to donate money or negotiate money. If we go into that, we are opening the thing into a very difficult major situation. So I think we should word it in a way that it would not be misunderstood as that, right, Mr. Grant? Okay. So
I'm not sure I understood.
help her word it in a way that it would not be misunderstood. Done.
My understanding of what you're saying is that one option is to have a grant program that's open to everybody that doesn't have any criteria. The other option is to have what we've done in the past, an RFP process, or a selection process where we define what the criteria is for the program and people apply to that. Is that what you're saying?
It could be worded that way, but basically it should not turn into, because the money is, unless we come to the point that we have a special staff that writes grants and provides all sorts of millions of dollars coming in, and then we would be kind of helping organizations that have a good purpose and etc. But to make sure that it would not be misunderstood or mistaken as CDBG. It is a different kind of collaboration and work that would be done. So I don't know what is the legal wording to put it into that, but I know that the moment it is people, they really are in dire need, different organizations, different theaters, different dance groups, different whatever, they need money. So I don't think they would think, because then they would be upset with the city and the
Yeah,
commission.
it's not a grant program. They're contracts for
That should be
specific
clarified.
services.
Yes.
It's contracts for specific services. So, like, let's say that you decide that one year you want to encourage neighborhoods to create a visual neighborhood identity. You're going to have to set criteria based on, and you've got a lot of suggestions in the co-urbanized site. And I've tried to be specific about the types of things that you should be doing. Perhaps it could be a little bit more specific, but it's not meant to be a grant based on need. Not at all. And in fact, it can't be. You can't just give grants out to organizations just for doing good art. They're supposed to be providing specific services for the community at large.
Okay, could we say that it should be something that the commission has envisioned or commission has decided this is needed, and then we would help them?
Yeah, I think it does.
Not vice versa, not vice versa.
Right, yeah, no, I think it does, but I'm happy to be more specific about that.
Okay.
The idea is to be proactive, say, we want this, and
who can provide it?
Yeah, and go, for instance, Glendale
right.
Arts makes sense because they're local and they're here and they're connected with the city.
So-
You ask them to do this for us.
It is
rather than in
initiated by the
past.
commission.
Yes.
Initiated
Rather than-
by the
And I think
commission,
this is,
so we could do
yeah,
that.
this is what's kind of, I think, not sitting so well with us because in the past they've come to us and we're giving them money and they perhaps haven't done everything that we thought they should have done with that. So I think we have to be proactive about that.
Exactly, yeah.
Not wait
Reactive,
for
yeah,
reactive.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
I will.
That's what you were saying, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I think
I need people to
I
work
was trying to say that, and I'll try to be more specific about it.
Yeah, if you could be
I can be more specific about that.
or more
Yeah.
clear about that.
Although there isn't anybody coming in here, we have been told that we need to end at 5 o'clock.
Okay, well, if
I
there
want
aren't...
to make last question or raise an issue. On your page 18, appendices, number 1 is the implementation of grid.
Is what?
Page 18, implementation grid. Within this report, I don't see that grid.
Yeah,
But
that question was asked before, and Cindy was explaining that.
this grid was presented during
I
the
asked
last
about
meeting.
that.
Right.
She answered.
Are we going to discuss this issue in our meeting?
No,
This just came up a few minutes
This was
ago.
just discussed a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, the suggestion is that we use that document as suggestions for how we develop the work plan. So the next steps are, Barbara, you guys finally approve the work plan, we bring it to council, then we come back to the commission and we actually develop a concrete work plan for either the next year or the next 2 years, as we've done in the past. So those are suggestions
For the future.
that
Yeah, but then my question is this grid plan was handed to us during
During the previous
meeting,
discussion, yeah.
the group meeting, but whereas this is an important document, at the same time, as a commissioners, we have to review too. That's
Well,
how I see it.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it is not something that you approve necessarily,
Well,
because
yeah,
it's
but then what I'm saying, at least
suggestions.
review it, because it's a advisory body was reviewed or had that document in their hand. The advisory body had it during that meeting.
Well, you did too. So I
I
think
know.
that-
What
yeah.
I'm saying is,
Yeah.
as a commissioners, all of the commission that were not present during that advisory body,
Actually,
maybe they should have a copy and review those things.
I think that what Cindy is saying, and if I'm not misunderstanding, is that this is a document that you all should use as
Yes.
the basis of your work plan once the the master plan has been approved, rather than putting it before city council before you've had a chance to thoroughly review it as part of your work plan. So in other words, basically all it is that I took the recommendations that are in the text and I put them into the form of a grid, and the grid says these are the ones that are happening, and then I put some suggested dollar amounts and some suggested
Roughly,
partnerships.
yes, I see that.
So what Cindy is saying is that rather than put something that is really specific into the plan that goes forward to city council, that you use that after the master plan has been approved as the basis for your work plan.
What I'm saying to this commissioner is putting the heart to listen, to input everything, might as well put the heart in this one too ahead of time. That's what I'm saying.
All right, I have to defer to my client.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, all I'm saying is let's also discuss these matters, because if we are, Barbara's going to present to the city council, they're going to approve, let's say, the overall budget, 1.7, 1.5, whatever that $1 million is. But let's have a little bit more talk about this issue, because a subcommittee, a advisory board has looked at it, has discussed it. Why not us?
I think we looked at it for the purpose of understanding.
We will look at the same purpose.
I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, but I think it was produced for us to have a concept of what budget is going to look like, but we don't want to get into those numbers now. We don't know until we start working on the plan whether those numbers are valid.
I'm all for it, but I'm saying that the commission has to look at those things, numbers too.
I expect you to, yeah.
Yeah, when the projects come up, absolutely.
Well, before the project comes up.
Before that, if you are a commission and they are subcommittee to us, basically, that's how it is supposed to be. And if it is different, I would be very upset about it. So it's important or not, but nonetheless, I don't think that was. So whatever is decided and discussed, it should be shared with the commission as well. Because they are sub to the commission. They are not above commission. Above commission is council. So before that, we need to have an agreement on that.
One last comment. I have 2 minutes, or maybe one.
Well, we have to do comments. We have a couple things to resolve before we're done, so let's wrap it up soon.
Okay, go ahead.
For our future of the commission, to be an independent decision-making body. Now, that's not going to happen anytime very soon, but would you consider that as a
22nd century?
22nd century goal of a recommendation that this would be the best in the long, long run for a commission, the Arts Cultural Commission in Glendale?
Well, the changes that I'm proposing for the municipal code are the first step in that, because the municipal code basically says the city council and whoever it designates. And so I'm recommending that it says, and it designates the Arts and Culture Commission. Because right now, they don't have to designate anybody.
Designate anybody to do the commission work.
Right, it's basically just a matter of practice that the Arts and Culture Commission have been designated to do certain things. And so the recommendation for changes in the municipal code are to be more specific about the commission being the designee to provide recommendations and work with the city council. It's a matter of building up their trust, and I think that the city council appreciates the work that you're doing, and will even appreciate it more as you build stronger relationships with the individual council people that appointed you.
It's 5 o'clock, so do we have to leave or what?
Well, on that one, because I don't want to talk behind the dais, it's a dream, it's an idea, but nowhere in the world, everywhere, arts and culture commissions are a department or they are a ministry. Minister of this, ministry of that. So they are kind of, because it's whatever they do, there should be a kind of
but
a
other
civic
commissions
program.
have decision-making power.
We can make decision-making, but we cannot be independent. Yeah. That is not independent.
We're going to wrap up the meeting. Do we have any comments? Thank you very much, Barbara, really. It's a
keep
terrific plan.
Or that's the only one you have?
I need that. But there's other copies. Do we have any comments from commissioners?
Well, Vice Chair, if you do want to conclude this item, then I will go back in there and have the chair come back, and then
in.
he
Absolutely.
will finish up
Okay.
the meeting very quickly.
Okay, let's do that.
All right? Okay.
Absolutely.
He's in the detention room.
Oh, he's still there, poor
He's been
guy.
listening to the meeting? Okay.
Jeez,
I
that's
see.
quite awful.
But he can hear us over there.
Oh, he's been watching back there.
Can he hear
Okay.
us?
He can hear.
Yeah, he's watching
He can hear
TV.
and he can watch us, yes. We
He
have done
could-
that kind
Why
of a
can't he
meeting
sit
too.
here as a public?
No, that cannot be done. The rule
the
is.
same idea,
They
hearing
need to
and
be-
watching.
They
the
need
rules.
to be in the
Rules.
detention room. I'm not joking,
Yeah,
it's just.
conflict of interest, you are punished.
When I had to recuse myself on HPC, I sat in the back and didn't get to hear anything. So,
Yeah, but I like them to hear too, because they need to know what goes on. Now, even if they don't put their input, they can hear us. Oh, it's good, nothing bad. Joke, I'm sorry. The detention was a joke. It was just, they
What was
need
that,
to be
Ronald?
isolated.
Remember
but-
Ronald Reagan
So,
when he thought the mics were
the
off?
last part, I
Remember
spoke
that
like
one?
Trump, huh?
When the mics were off, he said, "This Soviet Union has been declared illegal. We start bombing." And I was like, Shant.
Next item, please.
Item 6, commission staff comments.
If you don't mind, colleagues, I'd like to make a brief comment, just to clarify the recusal earlier, not to get into what was discussed, but first, I want to recap what I had said prior to the start of this item, that it was both a business relationship conflict, and it's also conflict in my elected position at Glendale Unified School District. And so when we started this process, there were no organizations mentioned necessarily. It was a blank slate. What's our mission? What's our vision? What types of programs do we want to see? As we got further along in the process, some organizations started being mentioned, and so we received the agenda on March 9th. I started reviewing the actual plan we will be voting and acting on, making a recommendation to council, and I made the decision at that point that I have some concerns with some of the organizations mentioned. I don't feel it would be appropriate to act on them, and so I did reach out to our legal counsel at the city to ask for formal opinion. We had brief discussions. It was short notice because I needed time to first decide if I thought that it rose to that level. And I also could not reach out to Barbara and ask her in advance to remove organizations mentioned because I would be acting on my conflict of interest. So I apologize for some of the confusion that was created, but it would have also been inappropriate for me to, in advance, communicate that to her. We also have Brown Act, and I could not make a Brown Act violation and tell my colleagues in advance what the situation was because it has to be publicly discussed, as it was when I announced my conflict and recused myself. So I apologize for some of the confusion that's happened here, but I think the cat's out of the bag. I would want our consultant to make recommendations she feels are the best thing for what the future of our public art master plan is. And that was gathered through lots of feedback and activities, not from one person from the dais up here. And so now that we have to actually vote on it, that's when I made the decision that the best thing to do, the right thing to do, would be to recuse myself from the discussion and the vote. And I apologize for all the confusion that it created, but I think it was the right thing to do, and I will continue to recuse myself from the public art master plan. So I apologize again, but happy to, if there are any other additional comments.
No comments. We can't have comment. No.
Not
No
on my, but if you want to make any
well,
commission comments.
Staff, yeah, commission comments.
Yeah,
on
not
number
respond
six.
to me, yeah.
I want to take a moment and thank Ara Oshagan for his beautiful creation at the Reflex area with the board, the wall, that he had been working on it for so long. And visually, it's incredibly impacted me and I'm sure all the visitors. I congratulate you and ask you to do more of these projects. I'm sure you are.
Thank you.
A comment. I would like to thank City of Glendale and the library for creating the reflecting space and to bring the culture events that are so important into the
Without-
library
Commissioner,
and having
there-
the wonderful
Commis-
person to be part of. So thank you,
We
both
can-
Ara, and thank you,
the microphone.
One
Cindy,
moment.
for your vision.
Sorry, one moment.
We are done.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Just turn it on.
So I wanted to thank Cindy and Cindy because because they created the reflecting space, which is very important. Culturally, it touches a very important aspect that we all need to be aware of, and to hire a person who does a good job and does excellent presentation, fabulous presentation. I made a specific comment which he would share with Cindy about that location, but thank you, library, Cindy and Ara, because without that space, we wouldn't be able to kind of landmark our library and our city for this kind of an event in the city of Glendale. So this is fantastic. Thank you.
Next item. Great. Next item.
Item 7, written communications.
And we have none. Thank you. Next item.
Adjournment.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.